the long-running series of shorter days and cooler nights, was canceled this week after nearly 3 billion seasons on Earth. The classic period of the year, which once occupied the coveted slot between summer and winter, will be replaced by new stifling humidity levels and near-constant sunshine. A shiny, bobbing object in the water is generating fascination among members of the fish community, who have described it as pleasingly wiggly and minnow-esque. Aquatic experts say that decisive action must be taken against the object very soon. In local news, just when 27-year-old Andrew Sheets didn't think his vacation could get any better, a rerun of Spin City came on. And in other headlines, a bee stuck between the screen and front door is going nuts. And a water skier lets go of the crossbar to greet those not currently water skiing.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And with you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Riley.
And on this show tonight, we have multiple different things to talk about because multiple things happened during the week, and we're a weekend show, so...
we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to catch up on, from Elon and Trump breaking up, having a divorce, who's going to get their kids.
That's so silly, yeah.
Yeah.
They are acting seriously like a married couple, and it's been just an absolute world of memes. Just so many memes are made about this.
Oh, yeah.
And then some stuff that's been happening, I think, starting today with LA protests over the ICE.
Well, that's been going on since yesterday, but Trump just deployed the National Guard to LA Today, yeah, and he's cracking down on these illegal immigrants, and it's going to get interesting, I think.
Yep, probably not in a good way. But we already have a caller who wants to talk about Elon Musk and Trump fighting. Creighton, you're in Kentucky, right, Creighton?
Yes, and good evening to all the professionals.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about this show, and I think it is a show, between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I don't think it's real.
Oh,
at first,
that is the take I've heard.
Say again?
This is a take I've heard, but go ahead.
And the reason I don't believe it's real is because Donald Trump has done things like this before.
With who?
And Megyn Kelly was one. And he's been doing it with the chairman of the Federal Reserve since February.
So you're saying those ones are fake? Like his fight with Megyn Kelly was fake?
It was fake to him. And I'm not sure it was fake to Megyn Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you know that? Like, did he come out and say he purposely provoked her?
No, Megyn Kelly did.
Oh, she said
she
that...
admitted... Yeah, in
go
an
ahead.
interview, she admitted that she was warned in advance by Donald Trump himself that he could potentially get attention that she might not necessarily want. That he's told her that it's good when they talk about you.
Yeah.
And that's also a fundamental truth that is listed in his book, The Art of the Deal, is that there is no such thing as bad publicity. If they're talking about you, you can use that. But this specifically, at first, I have to admit, it got so hot, I was like, that maybe this is not it. But on Friday, I realized, yes, it's definitely it. Because I was looking at what the outcome, what happened in the background while this fight was going on this past week, especially, is that one of the key things you have to understand is that the big, beautiful bill, as they call it, is an appropriations bill. And because a true appropriations bill is constitutionally only a product of the House of Representatives, and the Senate can only really approve or disapprove of it with 51 vote majority. They can't filibuster it as long as it's a true appropriations bill. But there's a law, a procedural law from the 1970s that requires that previous appropriations that are being removed cannot be in a new appropriations bill. They have to be in a separate recessions bill. And that process requires that the Office of the President send that request to the House of Representatives, and they create a true, completely, this is the only thing we're doing kind of bill, is we're deleting these previous appropriations, and it has to be separate. Well, that bill existed. It was in committee last week, and it came out of committee on Friday. And because the Republicans can control the House of Representatives functionally, and don't really entirely control the Senate, they don't want a bill to go to the Senate that is not a pure appropriations or recessions bill, because a recessions bill also is only 51 votes in the Senate. So the opposition to the Doge cuts, which are in the recessions bill, their best opportunity to kill the bill was in committee. And again, that bill came out of committee on Friday and is now going to the full House floor. And during this entire time, Elon Musk's official biggest complaint is that the Doge cuts were not in the big, beautiful bill. Well, of course not, because he already knew they wouldn't be, because they were in a different bill.
Okay.
Something that he absolutely had to have known, being part and parcel so deep into the mix of this.
So
he would have known.
The one that you said it came out of committee and it's more of a pure appropriations bill, is it much smaller and doesn't have a bunch of extra bulk?
Yes, it is much smaller. But they call it a recessions bill, and it's spelled weird. But it basically means that it's basically a bill specifically so the president say, this is too much money for this process. I would like you to reduce that budget. And he sends that to the House of Representatives and the House of Representatives because it has an authority. It has a higher priority than new bills. It happens very quickly, and that's what happened. But during this whole week, we heard no news about it because the opposition to the Doge cuts couldn't get any oxygen out of the media. They couldn't get any attention. And I think that was the point for the Trump administration as well as Elon Musk. But they will never admit that this is fake, ever. Because if they did, then Elon Musk could be sued for manipulating his stock price. Again.
Oh, interesting.
But if you knew this was coming, you could have been ready and bought into Tesla at a discount if you knew it was fake. Because in the future, when they make up and the risk of Elon Musk losing his government contracts fades away, then that stock price would probably return.
So I guess I'm not exactly following what this has to do with their fight. Why would Trump and Elon Musk have to fight because of all this?
Primarily because they want to prevent opposition to the Doge cuts themselves.
But okay, wait. Who wants to prevent Doge cuts? Because wouldn't Elon Musk not want the cuts?
No, he wants the cuts.
Oh, cutting of the government. This isn't like cutting his Doge, his not company, but
no. It sounds like what Creighton is saying is that that Elon wants the cuts, and they're in this recessions bill that's just recently come out of committee.
Yes, it's safe from being killed inside committee where the the Democrats that have opposition to it have more power to do something about it.
I still don't understand why Trump and Elon have to fight publicly because of what you're saying.
Well,
like, how does that help?
It's distraction. It's like a magic trick. You're paying attention to the woman in the red dress while the magician is actually doing something else over here on the right stage right. And that's largely what happened.
I don't get it. Like, you really think the House of Representatives doesn't know what they're voting on because of what Trump and Elon are saying on Twitter? That probably not. It's more of a distraction to the public.
Of course.
They're obviously going to be talking about it. That doesn't mean the vote doesn't happen or suddenly no one knows what they're pressing. I just don't see it. There's always this argument whenever there's anything happening that's big in the news, like this is a distraction to this. But it's even weaker of an argument, I think, when this is going to distract these people who obviously know exactly what they want to vote for when it comes to stuff like this because of their lobbyists and such. It wouldn't just accidentally vote something else because they're distracted. See what I'm saying?
Oh, well, the reason that they don't want too much attention to it in a term, and the Democrats that oppose it would want to bring attention to it, is that the members of Congress, especially Democrat members of Congress on the committee, are subject to what the opinion of people who call them on. They don't really care what the general vote is. They care what people tell them they believe. So they pay attention to who calls the Congress and complains about such a bill and that bill. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily change their mind, but they do it affects them. It influences them. One of the things that happened when Elon Musk brought this up, that it's not in the big and beautiful bill, all kinds of Republicans called the Congress interchange to complain that it wasn't in the bill, even though, at the time, the recessions bill already existed in the committee. And by doing that, they overwhelmed whatever possibility that the Democrat operatives that wanted to kill it were trying to get people to call in, just completely overwhelmed it. So it's a matter of influence. And there's one more piece of influence, is that when Elon Musk made the claim that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. And if Donald Trump was in the Epstein files, it would have came up before now.
Yeah,
but the reality is
sad.
that
it's sad and weird if Elon didn't bring it up and he knew that. But yeah, go ahead.
But because Elon Musk brought that up publicly, made that claim publicly, now even the Democratic Party official website, official Twitter mouthpiece, I should say, is calling for the Epstein files to be released. Which is not something they wanted last week. So by influencing that, they can, I mean Trump and company, can influence the public into paying more attention to the Epstein files. So when they do get released, they'll get more attention.
Yeah. They'll get more attention, but also just like that the Democrats won't be against the release. I guess I could see that one. The main thing that makes me feel like it's fake is just how Trump is talking and reacting. It's like, if Trump was actually insulted to his face on the internet, I think he wouldn't be being so calm. He's been more of the clear-headed one.
Yeah, it's interesting, but
there's one more factor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Both of these men know each other's phone numbers. So if they were really actually disagreeing, they don't have to do it in public.
Yeah, but sometimes there's a benefit to do things in public, like totally embarrass the other side, or do it in a way that makes them react differently than if you just threaten someone on their text, they might call your bluff. But if you are doing it in public, no bluff to call.
Right. I can see if it was a real argument, that being true. It's just like you said, Trump is not really the kind of person that seems like he would take being insulted in public quite so smoothly.
Yeah. That is super weird. It's kind of funny because it's like, if they are a couple fighting in this situation, it seems like Trump is the guy and Elon is the woman. Because Elon's being all like scorned and like, I can't believe I put all this effort and all this time into you. And Trump's like, all right, calm down. You know, you're embarrassing me. You're doing this too publicly. Seems like he's like the man and she's the woman. I mean, sorry, Elon's the woman, but really he's an alien. So
that's entirely possible.
Well, thank you for the theories. Interesting stuff. It's always just like the federal government is so huge and disgusting. There's so many new terms to learn, even though I hear about this stuff like a lot, probably more than like just the average person. I hear about it a lot because I have to talk about stuff on the show. Yeah,
when we do talk radio, we learn a lot more than the average person for sure.
And yet still, I had never heard of an appropriation bill. I pulled it up here to like follow along with what he's saying. It's just like, I mean, I don't remember anything about that in the Constitution. Now I'm going to sound really dumb if it is in one of the amendments or something. But still, it's just like the federal government seems to create its own little stupid crap and more and more and more powers for itself every day. It's disgusting and hard to keep up with. But glad you kept up with it, Creighton, so you could share the news with us. Thank you for the call. And we have other callers online, so I'm going to go to the phones. Dave Ridley, you're on Free Talk Live, and you're in Colorado, and you wanted to talk about the family of the Colorado attack suspect. So what is the Colorado attack? Like, which attack do you mean?
Yeah, if you followed this attack there was a demonstration in favor of releasing the Jewish hostages that are still held in Gaza, I believe. And a guy attacked them with a makeshift flamethrower, shouting "Free Palestine."
Whoa!
I heard about this protest. I don't remember how long ago it was, though.
When did the attack happen?
Or the attack, rather.
2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh, okay. Wow. I didn't hear about it.
This is going to be kind of part 5 of my series on the deteriorating political situation in Colorado that started, I started making these calls about, I don't know how long ago. But if you look at it, what's interesting here, obviously, a guy that does something that horrific, he burned some people. I don't think he killed anybody. Obviously I guess he was from Egypt. He had some sort of, political motive in waging this attack. So, I'm not here to focus on what's happening to him. But but the problem is the federal government immediately went after his children, who I think are pretty young. I think he had 5 or 6 children, various ages, and they grabbed them. They seized his children. I think within 2 days of the attack, and these I think the kids all had visas. I just don't think 2 days is enough time to even come up with much of a reasonable suspicion on these kids.
Okay. So it hasn't been. It's not like proven that to these people, or were they wearing masks or something?
Well, no, they were just arrested apparently for being related to him. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
Oh, so it's not it's the family, is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, the family of the suspect.
And they got arrested? Did they get taken in for questioning and then say stuff that made them, incriminated themselves?
Now, I'm sorry, arrested is not quite the right word. Detained would be a better word. And then the Marco Rubio, who I believe is Secretary of State currently, he said, quote, "All terrorists, their family members, and terrorist sympathizers here on a visa should know that under the Trump administration, we will find you, revoke your visa, and deport you," unquote. That's what they're trying to do to these kids, is deport them.
Oh.
And they're American citizens, 100%?
No, they're elite. They're lawful aliens here on visas, I believe.
Okay.
So, and if you compare that to what Clinton's administration did in 1995 when Timothy McVeigh allegedly bombed the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, I don't believe his sister was ever punished, even though she had been cooperating with him politically in some ways. And his father, I don't think, was ever punished.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know what their immigration status was. And I'm not saying this makes it right, but I'm saying this is what I think the feds think gives them the power to do this stuff. Is like, when you're here on a visa, you literally ask the federal gang for permission to be here, and you agree to certain things. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that when you fill out paperwork saying yes, and I won't do this and I will do that, I think it just makes it easier for them. It'd probably be really hard for them to deport Timothy McVeigh's sister if she's just like a regular citizen. That's why, like somebody's here from like Russia or something and they're pretty like libertarian and cool, but they don't really want to talk publicly a lot, and you kind of get it because they're here like not quite a citizen yet or a new citizen or something, and they don't want to lose it. I'm not saying it's right. I just think that is like the missing piece, and people are wondering like, how can Trump do this? Like they might have literally signed up for it, because like you signed up for a lot of crazy stuff, even when you just fill out forms saying, yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen, but probably not as bad as when you sign up to become like a resident visa holder, whatever you call it.
Yeah, in a sense, that's the whole point, is that why even bother filling out all this paperwork if they can just throw you away, whether you went through whether you followed the rules or not.
That's a good point. That's a good answer to the people that are like, why didn't they go through the legal...
Well, the legal channels are all convoluted and difficult anyway.
Yeah.
They're time-consuming for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
The other federal, line that's been crossed here is, okay, so it's the thought crime line where they're saying, quote, all terrorists, their family members, and terrorist sympathizers, unquote. So that, based on what you think, and of course they get to define what a terrorist is. All kinds of things are terrorists according to them. You think the wrong thoughts, they're going to come revoke your visa, is what they're saying.
Yeah, like it's the implication, right? That they thought like the Palestine's the right side, because it's not necessarily. If it was anything like that, they were involved in the flamethrower attack itself, then they would just be saying that they were like criminals and they were involved in that. But if it's just, it's literally thought crime, like you're saying, like if you're not supporting the side that Trump likes at that given time, you can be deported.
Yeah. And, given time, the feds maybe in the last few days, I haven't checked the situation in the last few days, so maybe they have found something on some of the kids, and then we can talk about that. But again, just going after them for being related to someone is a key line that normally does not get crossed in the United States. That's the kind of thing Stalin would cross or Hitler would cross.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
So definitely thought crime is becoming punishable by a gang.
I mean, it's already...
Nothing to add.
Thank you for the call, Ridley.
Thanks, guys.
They've been punishing people. And in fact, I don't even know if this counts as like prosecution when it's like a deportation. I don't think that's prosecution. It's just a different thing. But they've been prosecuting people for thought crime for a really long time. I mean, there's a whole money laundering type of charge, which I would have never known about, except that it happened to my husband, where you're committing money laundering if you sell something to someone, but you should have known that it was somehow illegal. You should have known that they were a drug dealer. You should know what the laws are. No, it's not even that. It's like, you should know what that person is doing, even if they lied to you. Like, you should know that person's being scammed, even if they lied to you, in Ian's case. You should know that person's a drug dealer, even if they lied to you. Like, because it should be obvious. It's called not a wink and a nod, but that's what I always say, because that's what the prosecutor kept using that term. So yeah, that's definitely a thought crime. But there's like tons of them. Like hate crime shouldn't be on the books, because that is literally like, oh, well, you did a crime, that should just be the crime. But then and you also thought mean things about the person while you did it. More Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. Stuff about the ICE protests coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. If you have like a theory about what's going on with Trump and Musk, please call in and tell us. That'd be fun. Oh, sorry, hold on. I muted you, Riley.
You're censoring me, Bonnie.
Yep, you're censored.
I was just going to say, how dare you censor me like that? I was just going to say that, yeah, call in with all your theories. We love hearing about them. This is an open phone line show. If you have fun theories to talk about, call us, 603-283-6160.
So, you could call in about anything, though, but it's not a topic we have to talk about all night, because honestly, it's like, I know it's like really interesting to some people. It's really crazy, but I may have sounded like I was like grilling Creighton, but I'm totally on his side. I was just playing like devil's advocate. Sure. But I think it's, I mean, everything they do is fake. Like, Trump is an actor.
Oh yeah, he's very much an actor. He's playing a big part on a stage. Yep. The world is a stage, and Trump's just playing his part for the New World Order.
It would be interesting to read his book sometimes. I'm just like, I don't know if I really want to spend my time doing that. Maybe listen to a review or synopsis of his book or something, because then you start he has that inside. Creighton has that inside perspective of things Trump does because he read his book. Because it's like, yeah, you'd probably start to see that he like says, "Oh, do this for fame," and he starts doing it, and it seems a lot more fake. But that's like, you know, like reality TV, which he literally had a reality TV show.
He did.
I forgot about that.
You're fired.
When I even said that. Yeah. Reality TV is like
The Apprentice.
It blurs the lines. It's like, it's not like every single little thing that happens is 100% fake. So there's like that, I forget the word, like deniability. Like you can still be
plausible deniability.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, this isn't 100% fake. Like my marriage really did break up, but they played up all the dramatic parts or whatever for the.
You have to understand, Trump is a bit of a narcissist himself, and he loves the attention. And the fact that he and Elon are breaking up so publicly, I mean, Creighton might be onto something. This might all just be a reality TV show.
Yeah, and there's such intricacies with the stupid law-passing system of the federal government. Even in like the state ones, some of the drama I hear, I'm like, what the heck? And like all of the intricacies, I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not a state rep. It'd be awful to have to like, and then this means this, and if this happens, then this, and be like, I'm playing like 3D chess, insider football, blah, 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 or baseball, or whatever.
And you gotta use certain rules of order, Robert's rules of order, and things like that. It's just complicated.
So hard to follow.
Yeah.
But I could totally believe that he's on something with that. It's hard for me to follow, but I could totally believe that like there is some benefit to both of them or one of them to make them fight publicly. Just like, because for one thing, it did suddenly turn the tables to where like yesterday, me and my friends saw a Tesla with the sticker still that said like, I hate Elon. I don't remember, like a Tesla, but it had one of the stickers that's like, not an Elon fan, just so people know, so they don't get their car keyed. Like, I had this before Elon was a jerk or whatever.
Yeah.
One of those. I don't remember which one. And we were like, oh my God, I wish we could talk to that person. I wish we were like parked in the parking lot and we could be like, oh, so you're pro-Trump then? Because it's like the tables suddenly turned.
Yeah.
You're pro-Trump if you're anti-Elon. It's like there was actually a protest going on in Dublin, like a really tiny town on, I forget, 101 in New Hampshire, that my friend passed, and it was a bunch of people with like anti-Elon signs during the Doge thing. It's just like, now if you pass something like that, you can roll down the windows and be like, you Trump supporters make me sick.
That's funny.
That's so funny. And that did, just like those tables did suddenly turn. So maybe somehow it's beneficial to Elon and Trump to seem like they're not friends.
Maybe it is. And maybe Creighton's right. Maybe this is all a ruse to get the Tesla stock to rise really high.
Oh my gosh. Really ridiculous. So, something to announce to you guys. The largest libertarian camping festival, the Porcupine Freedom Festival, is being held at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire this June 16th through the 22nd. PorcFest is a flagship annual event of the Free State Project. This year will feature speakers like Jacob Hornberger of the Future of Freedom Foundation, who is going to discuss Ian Freeman's case, Ross Ulbricht, Bob Murphy, Joel Salatin, and our own Jay Noon. Come the weekend before, which is June 13th through the 15th, for the laid-back pre-PorcFest decentralized party, ForkFest. And you can go to the websites porkfest.com, that's pork with a P as in Paul.com. It also has a C, not a K, like the animal pork. So porkfest.com and forkfest.party. That's forkfest with an F as in fire truck .party. To learn more, and we hope to see you there. Riley and I will both be there.
Yes, we will. One way or another.
Yep. So we do hope to see you there. There'll be Free Talk Live shows from the campground, meaning like the next 2 weeks, most likely, because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about ForkFest. Probably record shows, but
I think we should record shows from ForkFest just so people understand what ForkFest is, and it's not as popular as PorcFest, so I think it'd be fun to do shows from ForkFest.
So that might happen, definitely PorcFest, but most likely what I'm saying is like the next 2 weekends won't be call-in shows. So you should get your calls in tonight, and that's
because Colin's not on the radio.
Oh my gosh. It's 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever is on your mind, and we touched on it, but we probably should talk a little bit about what's happening in Los Angeles. So this is from apnews.com. The National Guard faces off with protesters hours after arriving in Los Angeles on Trump's orders. Tear gas was fired at protesters in Los Angeles on Sunday when some demonstrators moved close to National Guard troops and shouted insults at them. Wow, they're weaklings. Hours after, insults equal tear gas, not really.
Yeah.
Hours after President Donald Trump's extraordinary deployment of the military over the objections of the governor and mayor. Dang. That's bad.
It is bad. It's like the federal government thinks they're more powerful than the states.
Oh, yeah. I've witnessed firsthand. Actually, we're going to have a guest in studio. If he makes it on time, Footloose, and I went to one of his trials once where he was arguing that the feds never even asked for permission to be in New Hampshire, so they never asked for permission for that actual land where we were in the federal courthouse. And so it should be all null and void that they get to just say what happens in that courthouse that they built on the land they never asked New Hampshire for. And it's actually like established law that New Hampshire has, that it's like if something is going to be taken, if some land is going to be taken by the feds, if a building is going to be built, they have to go through this process. And there was none of that followed for the courthouse that like Ian went to jail in. And
oh, really? That could be an interesting court case.
It was really interesting. Of course, no cameras allowed in there. I took notes, but basically what happened was the prosecutor said, "Oh, the supremacy clause," and the judge was just like, "Yeah, I don't see what your point. Move on, Mr. Staples." And it's like, wow, that's a huge point. They literally just think they don't have to follow our laws, like they don't have to follow the New Hampshire laws.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because you would think that an institution that rebelled against the crown at one point would be really working hard to not be the crown itself, but yet they've become the crown. They've become the crown of England.
Yeah, like nobody was alive at that time, so it's like not exactly fresh on their cares, they care more about making money, getting power.
Yeah.
I think the like lower people, like the actual House of Representative people, I do think that they're in it for money mostly, but a lot, especially the higher up you go, it's just about power. It's like Donald Trump, he didn't need any more money.
No, it's about power and fame and fortune. And, Donald Trump may not need money, but he's going to get recognition for being president of the free world or leader of the free world.
Yeah, he was already going to make history, but he'll be in like way more history books now because he is two-time president of the United States.
Yeah.
All of his family gets more money and power that way. That's usually the two top things that people are... It's sad, though, because what you're saying, that people came here to create something different, and it just ended up nastier, even.
Oh, yeah. And, I think it's time we have an evolution of ideas again in a new direction where we have states breaking away from the federal government and saying, enough, we've had enough of you.
In fact, speaking of protests, and I totally agree, there's another protest that's going to happen on the 14th, which I think is Donald Trump's birthday, so they probably did that on purpose.
Yeah.
I could Google that, but I'm pretty sure. I know he's a Gemini, and today is Kanye West's birthday, and also Joan Rivers' birthday, and those two people, that makes sense that they have the same birthday, in my opinion, just rabble rousers.
Yep.
So on the 14th, my bad, let me get back to the topic. There is a protest that's going to happen called No Kings, and the reason I'm making fun of it, even though in the material agree with them, we don't have any kings, Donald Trump wants to act like a king, blah blah blah. It's like you didn't care about this. There wasn't a No Kings protest during COVID and Biden or
of course
anyone else, Obama.
Of course not. These are hypocrites. They don't know what they're talking about. They want to only protest when Trump is in charge, when their least favorite person is in charge. But when it comes to mask mandates, when there's a pandemic or vaccine mandates because of a disease on the rise, they're all fine locking you in your house and saying, oh, you got to do it for the greater good. But when Trump gets in charge, we can't have a king.
And it's like, I honestly think that the system we have that we've described tonight is so complicated that you learn something new about their stupid processes of creating more and more and more and more laws every day. is nastier than like even the monarchy at this point. It's nastier and bigger. It's like, we don't have kings. Well, why aren't you upset about the rest of it? Just because you've been indoctrinated to like the word democracy, it makes you happy, it feels good. It's like, or
you've been brainwashed to believe that this is the promised land and God is in charge and we must preserve the Constitution. No.
Yep.
We can't do that. We have to do something different. We can't go back to the way things were. We have to change history. We have to be in a position to say we need to do something different. Our forefathers didn't come to this country just so we could waste our time sitting here complaining about how terrible the system is and going back to the Constitution would save us. It's not going to save us at all.
Yep.
We need to do something different.
People vote for, we want more constitutionalism, and one day it'll just happen, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger under their noses every day.
Oh, yeah.
Doge did nothing to it.
It's not going to do a dang thing.
And I also just don't understand. I do not understand. Obviously, the answer of why people believe this is indoctrination from the schools, but I just don't understand why people believe, like, it's some sort of requirement. We absolutely must have everybody in this huge swath of land under the same government.
Right.
Like, I liked the idea of the states. I'm making it sound like I was there before the Constitution, but I just think the idea of the states makes so much more sense. It's like all of our states, I mean, not all of them, but most of our states are much bigger than the average, like, European states, so it's not, like, unheard of for... we feel like, as American, like, children growing up, that it only makes sense for America to be one big country.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way, and the only reason people believe it has to be that way, that you have to be part of the same country as people on the other side of the, thousands of miles away that you hate, and they believe totally different things than you. The only reason people believe that is because of the indoctrination coming from Lincoln and taught to people all the way down to today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, since Lincoln, tyranny has grown a lot. I mean, Lincoln was an absolute tyrant. He suspended habeas corpus. He threw Americans in prison because they opposed him. He was an absolute tyrant.
Yep.
All in favor of keeping America together. We got to keep this union together.
Speaking of no kings, you should definitely look into Lincoln if you want to be at that protest.
Yep.
So, back to this other protest, the one in Los Angeles. Apparently people are protesting ICE raids and just, ICE in general, which is the... oh man, I always forget what it stands for.
Immigration something.
Yeah, I always forget what it stands for. So, ICE.
I'm not sure what it means either, but it's funny because ICE is cold, and these people are cold and rude and ruthless.
Probably some of the nastiest cops. Like, I've never had to really talk to an ICE agent, but probably some of the nastiest cops because, like, grabbing people, putting them in cages and sending them to another country. I don't know, you probably got to be pretty nasty. It's the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I always forget that C.
Immigration Customs Enforcement, got it.
So they're just, I think they're just protesting ICE in general and all the people getting deported. So tear gas was fired at protesters in Los Angeles, and it says because some demonstrators got close to them and shouted insults at them hours after President Donald Trump's extraordinary deployment of the military over the objections of the governor and mayor. The confrontation broke out as hundreds of people protested in front of the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles, where several of the newly arrived National Guard troops stood shoulder to shoulder behind plastic riot shields. Video showed uniformed officers shooting off the smoke-filled canisters as they advanced into the street, forcing protesters to retreat. It was not immediately clear what prompted the use of the chemical irritants or which law enforcement agency fired them. Minutes later, loud popping sounds erupted again, and some protesters chanted, "Go home," and shame towards the National Guard people.
Well, I don't think that's going to work. Telling people to go home and shame on you isn't going to work at all. It's just going to irritate them.
So it says one person was taken to the ground by uniformed officers. Another appeared to be bleeding from their head. Sometimes you can get hit by one of those canisters.
Yeah.
So if they didn't shoot anything else, it could still cause bleeding from the head.
There are people who say that these riots against ICE and immigration enforcement are planned and paid for, but I don't know if that's always the case. I think there are generally people who care that people are being deported.
Yeah, I don't see why that would be fake. I think there's lots. It's like there's a lot of support behind that movement. So yeah. I can't. I'm surprised people are saying that. Like, I mean,
if you talked to me 20 years ago, I was a Michael Savage listener, and for those who don't know, Michael Savage was a borders, language, and culture guy. And since moving toward libertarianism, I'm less of a borders, language, culture person and more like, well, free people should cross borders freely, or you do not have a free people or free countries type of person. So if you talked to me 20 years ago, I'd be like, round up those illegals and throw them in a cage and get them out of my country. So a lot has changed in 20 years.
One thing about it is, like, I don't consider all those other states my country, and things aren't really being destroyed or harmed by illegals in New Hampshire as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's like individuals who commit crimes. I think we would be able to have some kind of private policing agency with in a free society that you could opt out of, or that would be accountable to the people that they serve, etc. And we would remove people and jail people in a society like that, especially that actually like went up and stabbed someone, something like that. But if somebody comes here and doesn't cause problems and isn't like on welfare, which hopefully in a freaking like libertarian society we wouldn't have welfare either.
No, I don't think we would. I mean, if we did have welfare, it would be a welfare funded by maybe a charity, maybe a church.
Yeah, that we would have that. I meant welfare as in like government welfare. Yeah. So it's not the act of removing somebody. The thing is, like, it wouldn't be an illegal person, it would just be a criminal. And at that point, it's just like the hate crime thing. It's like, it wouldn't be a hate crime, it's just a crime. Or like, you wouldn't be rounding someone up for being illegal and stabbing someone. It'd be because they stabbed someone.
Yeah.
And it's like, that instantly would, you know, make no sense to be here if you were only doing things that were bad, which is already basically the case in New Hampshire, which is why we have such a low crime rate. It makes no sense to do a crime in New Hampshire when you could do a crime in not a sanctuary city, but like a gun-free zone in California, you know?
Yeah.
It makes a lot less sense to do a crime here. Or like New York City is 4 hours away from where we sit. You can go there and do a crime.
You know, here in New Hampshire, a lot of people are open carrying, so if you try and commit a crime, someone's going to shoot you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was alluding to. I don't know why I didn't really say what I was talking about. Like, yeah, because people have guns
That's TikTok brain, Bon. You've been watching too much TikTok.
No, I wasn't censoring the word. I just, for some reason, didn't say what I was talking about.
Okay.
I was just like, yeah, you wouldn't do that here. But that's why, because like people will defend themselves here. I just saw a video today, this comedian that's so funny named Ryan Long. I also kind of think he's a libertarian.
Uh-huh.
I
think Colin introduced me to Ryan Long.
Yeah, he introduced me and you to it at the same time.
Yeah.
When we were in the car. So
we always seem to end up together somehow.
Me and you?
Yeah.
Well,
and Colin.
Yeah, he drives people. So.
He's really cool. He should be on the show more.
Yeah, he's like super busy. Everybody is busy for Pork Fest, which you read the ad about at the beginning of this segment, but all the libertarians in New Hampshire, basically, it becomes crunch time mid-June for getting ready for Pork Fest.
Yeah.
So anyways, Ryan Long, he did this video where he's going up and asking people about the Elon Musk stuff in New York City, like just going up on the streets with a microphone to talk to people. And he there's just this bum fight where this it wasn't two bums fighting, it was like a lady and this bum like crackhead guy, and she was saying he kicked my dog, like a little dog, like my dog size, and he was saying he had a reason, whatever. I didn't actually listen, it just like made me too angry, and I commented, I was like, he should try that in New Hampshire. Try that in a small town. No, I'm just kidding. The stupid thing is supposed to be a racist dog whistle. I actually don't believe it is. Like, you would only think it's a racist dog whistle if you're racist, because you would think that somebody is. Do you even know what I'm referring to there?
Not exactly, no.
Some country song, which is a horrible song. Like, I don't like it at all. It sucks. I don't hate all country, but I mostly hate male country. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
It's like, what do I have to relate to? Like a male country dude talking about like women, you know?
Yeah.
Don't relate.
I don't really like country much either. It's all a bunch of rich yuckity yucks pretending they're all for the common man, wearing boots and cowboy boots and running a farm and
definitely feels that way too.
Got a truck. I'm a cool man. I'm a truck. I'm a good old American, but they're rich as all get out.
Yeah, that's true. It's not just that they're rich. Like usually they're not even country or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was this country song. This was like a whole year ago that was called Try That in a Small Town. It was like doing crimes, and then the guy says try that in a small town, and people said it was racist. It's like you'd have to be racist to think that, though.
That's entirely possible. I haven't heard the song, so I can't really say.
Yeah. So, yeah, try that in New Hampshire. I'm just going to start typing that everywhere so people would get interested. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And they Google stuff. So, why we started talking about all that stuff, I think it's because we're talking about, like, New Hampshire and doing crime here.
And we talked about people having the proper paperwork to cross imaginary lines in the sand.
Yep. So, back to this article. It says, around 300 National Guard troops arrived in Los Angeles early Sunday on orders from Trump. Wow, it was like thousands in D.C. whenever the January 6th thing happened. If you remember that the National Guard was in D.C. for weeks.
Yeah.
So around 300 National Guard troops arrived in Los Angeles early Sunday on orders from Trump, who accused Governor Gavin Newsom, and other Democrats of failing to staunch recent protests targeting immigration agents. I didn't know you could use staunch like that, like squash, kind of. The move appeared to be the first time in decades that a state's National Guard was activated without a request from its governor, a significant escalation against those who have sought to hinder the administration's mass deportation efforts. So,
I wonder if California has any laws or rules on the book that say that the United States government can't call the National Guard unless the governor signs off on it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not, because you would think most of the time they'd be against something like it just doesn't usually seem to be like a leftist state type of thing. I forget what the word is. Standing up against the national laws. There's like a word for that, but it's not coming to mind right now, because not secession, but it's like nullification.
Nullification, yeah.
Yeah, because they just tend to be way more statist. I don't really get why they're way more statist, because it's absolutely true. I feel like that the leftists just lean more statist. Like the fact that mostly the leftists were the ones saying, like, give the government all the power because there's a flu out now and we have to give the government all the power. And I do predict that the next one's going to be a fungus, because I keep seeing stuff about like a deadly fungus. We read an article about it. I don't know if you were on that day.
Yeah, I was on that day. It was Richie Rich.
So more Free Talk Live coming up. You can call 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. This comes after far-right populist Geert Wilders announced he was quitting the coalition government in a row over immigration. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration. Prime Minister Dick Schoof has resigned, but says ministers will remain in their roles on a caretaker basis until elections are held, likely in the fall.
U.S. President Trump has banned citizens from 12 countries from entering the U.S., mostly from Asia and Africa, citing security risks. 7 other countries will face restrictions. FSN's Kate Fisher has more from Washington.
There are some exceptions for green card holders, dual nationals and diplomats, but this is seen as an extension of Trump's first-term travel ban, which targeted mostly Muslim countries. The president said the countries singled out have a large-scale presence of terrorists and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays. He said countries could be added to the list as threats emerge or removed if they make material improvements to their screening procedures.
The World Bank has announced it will resume funding to Uganda after ending a self-imposed suspension of loan support. The global lender imposed a ban in 2023 after Uganda passed a harsh law against its LGBT community. FSN's Isabel Nakiria reports.
The World Bank says it's rolling out funding again after months of negotiations, with the Ugandan government welcoming the move. The bank says it's confident the measures in place will allow funds to flow smoothly without harm being caused to LGBTQ people in Uganda. The ban came into force after the East African country enacted some of the world's toughest anti-homosexual legislation. World Bank funds are one of Uganda's biggest sources of external support, funding ambitious infrastructure development.
Those were some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Despite a long-held consensus pointing to the mid-20s as the final stage of brain maturation, a new study has found that the adolescent brain doesn't fully form until boys have avenged their father's murder.
New imaging studies suggest that the frontal cortex goes through extensive changes during the period of training when an adolescent boy prepares himself to track down and kill the man who took his father's life. But it's not until the boy stares deep into the murderer's eyes and then stabs him right in the heart that the two lobes fuse into a fully mature brain.
According to Dr. Laurie's findings, the myelin surrounding the teenage nerve synapses develops when boys stake out the home of their father's murderer, put themselves through grueling physical training, and fantasize again and again about how satisfying it will be when he finally makes the bastard who took everything from him beg for his life.
Now, if they let their father's killer slip through their grasp, or if they press the barrel of a gun to the back of his head and then realize they don't have what it takes to pull the trigger, then the amygdala is definitively stunted, and they'll have lifelong problems interpreting emotional information.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and that means you can call 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 to bring up whatever is on your mind. You can talk about with us here on Free Talk Live, and Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Sunday Night Live, Riley.
And the owner, sorry, I don't know how I tried to start my sentence like that. The owner of LibertyMinded.com, he updated the website. It's way more easy to look around at what there is there. Looks nicer. So just felt like I should mention
That's good news. That's good news. We're getting fresh new looks on our advertisers.
Yep. It's the only place to go get official Free Talk Live merch. So I looked it up during the break. It does look like California does have somewhat of like nullification laws, and it's for keeping the keeping the feds out of immigration. So that's interesting, but
yeah,
I don't know if Trump is just trembling right over them. AP doesn't really mention it. AP doesn't really mention that at all. And obviously that would be an interesting component. So it says the deployment followed 2 days of protests that began Friday in downtown Los Angeles before spreading on Saturday to Paramount, a heavily Latino city south of the city, and neighboring Compton, as federal agents set up a staging area Saturday near a Home Depot in Paramount. Maybe, is it Paramount? You know, like Paramount Pictures?
Might be.
Demonstrators attempted to block Border Patrol vehicles, with some hurling rocks and chunks of cement. In response, agents in riot gear unleashed tear gas, flash, bang, explosives, and pepper balls. Tensions were high after a series of sweeps. I mean, like, they're lucky nobody killed them. If there's, like, I'm not saying that they deserve to get killed, but,
yeah.
You know, it's hard to say something doesn't deserve to get killed or does when they're throwing rocks, because we don't know, like, if anywhere near or hitting somebody. But also, when the other side isn't just a regular person walking down the street, there are people with guns there to stop you from doing something you should legally be allowed to do, etc.
Yeah, well, I don't have sympathy for the Fed, so there's that.
And I'm not exactly, that's what I'm describing. I'm saying it's hard to make a judgment call. It would be easy to make a judgment call if this was just some lady walking down the street and somebody threw a chunk of cement at them. Makes it much different.
Yep.
It's
these people are wearing badges. They're carrying guns. They're more of a threat. So, if one of them dies, I'm not going to lose any sleep.
Right. So, that's why I'm saying they're lucky, but I didn't want it to sound like I was saying, like, well, those people are lucky. They should, think they're lucky stars. I didn't mean it like that. So, in response, agent in riot gear unleashed... Oh, I already read that. Tensions were high after a series of sweeps by immigration authorities the previous day, as the week-long tally of immigrant arrests in the city climbed above 100. A prominent union leader was arrested while protesting and accused of impeding law enforcement.
Oh, poor law enforcement. So impeded. Who cares?
Yeah, they say you're impeding them if you're just, like, filming on the other side of the street, so who knows what it even means.
It's just a way for them to treat you like a criminal and lock you in a cage, because they're just gangs anyway.
Yep. The deployment of the National Guard came over the objections of Gavin Newsom. I mean, like, it sounds like when we Googled and found that they have 2018 laws of nullification against the feds coming in for immigration arrests, it sounds like it's more than just objections. It feels like even AP is kind of downplaying that. We should talk about, like, exactly what, like, are the feds breaking California law? But the thing is, like, nobody focuses on that because it's like nobody thinks that is a problem. I feel like even the most brainwashed, like, people, well, especially the most brainwashed people, so that didn't make sense. It feels like even, like, the average person who is totally on the side of the Californians in this instance, they still have this brainwashing effect where they still believe that the feds just are, oh, that's, like, the highest power of the land, and like, the states are secondary.
And it shouldn't be that way. The state should be more supreme than the federal government, and then the federal government should be there to resolve disputes between the states, but we've forgotten that because, Lincoln and the whole movement to socialize America into this one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, with this magic flag and this magic symbols and this magic pledge.
Yeah, and if you don't like Lincoln, you're racist, Riley.
Then I guess I'm a racist.
That's part of the brainwashing.
Yeah, it is brainwashing for sure. But, when you indoctrinate people and the indoctrination is so secure, they have to find a way to accuse you of something so you feel like an outsider. So they manipulate your feelings. Well, how can you be so racist against black people when you accuse Lincoln of terrible things?
And it's like, even if the Civil War was 100% about slavery, I don't believe it was, but let's say it was, for the sake of argument, people will still say that it's like, whoa, that's like, only racists believe that when you talk about secession today, when there's no slavery and it has nothing to do with race of any kind of, like, in any direction. Makes no sense. That's how hard the brainwashing is. People will be like, it's like the average person is so brainwashed and dumb, it's like all you have to do is draw a slight connection between one thing and another, and then suddenly you can destroy someone's character or put down their movement, make that the person listening who's brainwashed want to have nothing to do with that other side because, just a little association that is a stretch anyway in most cases.
Yeah.
So it says, like, over the objections of Governor Gavin Newsom, who accused Trump of a complete overreaction. A complete overreaction designed to create a spectacle of force, which usually is what they're doing in cases like that. I'm sure Gavin Newsom himself has done stuff like that with his police force and his AG, blah, 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 because that's what cops are kind of for 99% of the time, just showing a display of force. Like, we can crush you if you
They want to show,
don't like.
Well, I agree with you on this. I think Gavin Newsom has done something similar to show his power. It's what governments do. They're puny little tiny little brats. They're like little children that have to show how powerful they are by threatening you and committing acts of violence just so you'll pay attention to them. They're like terrible parents.
Yeah.
They're parents who are unhealthy. mentally.
Yeah, but way not like that at the same time, because it's like they shouldn't be parenting anyone.
No, they shouldn't. They're the government. They're a gang.
It's more like
they're a gang and you're not part of it.
Somebody that kidnapped you.
Yeah.
So it says the recent protests remain far smaller than past events that have, that's the thing that I was thinking. I was like, there's only 300 National Guard there and there's 3 cities protesting. They can't be that huge.
Yeah.
The recent protests remain far smaller than past events that have brought the National Guard to Los Angeles, including the Watts and Rodney King riots. When you first said to me when you stepped in the studio, I hadn't heard of these protests yet, and you said, oh, we should probably cover the protests in Los Angeles. My first thing went to was Rodney King. I was like, what's going on in Los Angeles?
Yeah,
it's bad.
People have brought up the Rodney King riots in LA, and I don't think this compares, but you never know. It could. It could one day compare.
Yeah, it'd have to escalate a lot.
Oh, yeah. It'd have to escalate a ton. And you know what's interesting? So Los Angeles and California used to be part of what country? Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And so here we are saying, oh, we're going to deport you back to Mexico. Oh, wait. You've been part of Mexico was once owning California. So, I mean, maybe these people have been here for hundreds of years and we're going to pretend to deport them to Mexico?
That's a huge thing about just racism in general. A lot of people get accused of you should go back to where your ancestors came from, and it's like they're literally from right here, exactly where I stand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people don't understand that.
No, they don't know how to figure that out.
Yep. So I really hope that there's not a bunch of that going on, like people just getting grabbed up because of they look Mexican. I mean, they look ethnically Mexican, and then really I'm sure there is, though. It's hard to even keep track of all that because there's so much. Is you'll believe the media about someone. You'll be like, wow, this person was wrongly arrested, and then you'll find out there was tons of evidence they truly were a violent criminal who did bad things. It's it makes me quit caring as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And definitely not want to just be looking at it, spending my energy on it all day when it's it could all just be lies. It's hard to follow. It also doesn't seem like there's that much going on. Apparently there are fewer arrests going on now than Biden did. That wasn't in the news every day.
No.
And we're not even saying oh, that's not fair. They should have covered that for Biden. And the more, conservative talking point, I'm just simply saying it doesn't feel like there's that much going on compared to normal.
Well, the reason why it's front and center is because, obviously Trump is not liked by the left and the media because he's said things that they don't like. And so it's going to be front and center more for them than it is for us because, we pay attention to what the left do, the right do, and we talk about all their failings and shortcomings because we want to make sure that, number one, we tell the truth as close as we can get it. And, I've heard Ian and Mark say on Free Talk Live, and maybe they've said this, maybe I'm just remembering things wrong, but, we try not to claim that we're going to tell you the truth here on Free Talk Live, but we're going to get as close as we can because we don't know. We're not boots on the ground. If we can't tell you the truth in talk radio. So we'll do our best. Now, what I don't like is there are talk show hosts out there who say, we're going to tell you the 100% truth in talk radio. We are the truth in talk radio. And to me, that's just really arrogant.
Yeah, I mean, especially if they're not doing any kind of investigative on the ground stuff.
Yeah, and if they're just reading articles on the internet, then you're really not doing research. You're just reading articles on the internet.
Not enough to be able to be you're going to be the end all and be all. Just the idea of ever saying that you couldn't possibly be wrong is pretty full of yourself.
It is.
So, yeah, I'm glad these protests aren't getting bad. And I mean, not just the protests, but the reaction to the protests by the government as well. Doesn't seem like it's getting so bad yet. It's just completely absurd that Trump sent the National Guard to a state when the governor was saying that it's not necessary, etc. So, and I think that's because, in this case, the feds legitimately feel like it's against them, This is a protest, clearly against a federal agency. And so it's against them even with the state itself right now. Yeah. So, it says the recent protests are way smaller than all those other ones, including Rodney King and the 2020 protests against police violence, in which Newsom requested the assistance of federal troops at the time. The last time the National Guard was activated without a governor's permission was 1965. Wow.
It's a long time ago.
When President Lyndon B. Johnson, another bad one, sent troops to protect a civil rights march in Alabama, according to the Brennan Center for Justice. But he's a bad guy. I mean, that doesn't sound like as bad of a thing once I read the whole sentence. But, I mean, hopefully they weren't just going there and hurting people left and right. Then, you know.
Well, it's interesting. I think that was like 60 years ago now. And, you know, America has changed a little bit. I would think. I would hope that we've become better as human as a people, but I don't think much has on it. I mean, I think some things have changed, but I honestly think that deep down a lot hasn't changed, because a lot of people like nostalgia. They want to go back to the way things were when they were kids, or way back in the days when they felt like they were invincible or times were the best. And we have this thing where we nostalgize the past, and yet here we are, living in the present, and things are unraveling rather quickly because we've been covering racism with bandages, and maybe we're less racist as a people, maybe, but there are still racists out there, and they're becoming more and more loud in our society.
You think so? I really don't know if I agree, and I'm not saying I think the opposite. I just don't really see evidence for strongly on your side either.
So I think the thing I would say that convinces me that racists are getting louder is the internet. But then again, maybe the internet allows people to say things they normally wouldn't say in public, or behave a certain way that normally they wouldn't behave in public. Maybe they aren't racist in the real world, but maybe they're claiming to be racist on the internet because they're trolls. Yeah,
sometimes I genuinely wonder, and this isn't even really a point against your point or anything, because it's just a conspiracy theory in my mind, like a literal one. I wonder if a lot of that is fake and they're trying to push racism. Like, they want people to think racism is popular and start feeling racist, because it's like, could there really be this many people talk pretty much exactly the same and act, they have the same opinions, and they're wild, oh, I just hate Indian people because I don't like the smell of their food. It's never heard anybody say anything like that in person in real life, and they say it on the internet all the time. And the trolls in our chat that are awful say stuff about Indians all the time. It's in my real life, I never heard anything like that. It's it just seems out of left field, and it's why are there millions of people saying that on Twitter?
It's a good question. And
with all the same, with all the same young person, hip kind of, I'm hip, but I'm just racist, attitude. Yeah. Really, there are millions of people like that. It feels fake,
You bring up a good point, and that may be a huge possibility where, they're faking all this racism and gender inequality, or whatever you want to call it, to divide and conquer the American people, or people in general, because the people divided against each other, whether it be politically or whether spiritually or whatever, racially, they're going to be easier to manipulate eventually, because someone's going to be coming along and saying, I'm the savior here, I'm going to unite everybody, and everyone's going to want the unification because everyone's so divided, and so they're easily controlled. And when you have divided people that don't get along, they're not going to be able to function together as a society until they've learned how to really overcome their base desires, if that makes sense.
Yep, it makes sense, and I completely agree with you. That's what I honestly feel, and I don't know if I believe society is getting more racist. People in my real life don't act like that. Yeah, I just don't know if I agree. It feels like there has been, at least since I've been an adult, this push to turn everybody in America who's not white against white people, and that has had really bad negative consequences to where non-white people act all suspicious of you until you prove you're not racist. That causes tension, etc. And that's you can point to that. That's going on publicly in schools and on every headline, whiteness is a American problem. That's insane,
Yeah, and then maybe black people people hear that and be like, well, we got to find a way to make sure that we prove ourselves, that anyone who interacts with us who isn't of our race proves that they're not racist.
Yeah, not just black people, like everybody who's not white in America basically seems to have that attitude that like went to college. That's how it feels. Like anybody who went to college, like, and I've had things said to me in public, like where people are like, I typically don't like white people, but I like you. It's like, it's still offensive and crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
So that has been going on for a long time. Maybe there's like been a pushback to this, but I don't know.
I would think that people who are supposed to be educated would be a little more. I mean, yeah, let's get along as people of different races. I think racism is just a weird concept to think about because I'm blind. I don't know what color your skin is. I don't really care. I don't care where you came from as long as we can communicate with each other. And that being said, I would think that people who are more educated would be less racist, but also less willing to push, oh, you're a racist bigot because you're white, and you need to carry all this burden because you're white, and you need to carry this guilt around because you're white. And it's just ridiculous. Maybe we need to grow up as people.
Yeah, it does seem that is definitely a component of it, just plain old growing up. We're being joined right now by Footloose Frank on the third chair with us here, if you guys can see him on the camera. So is that what you usually go by? Oh, you gotta talk real close to the mic.
What's up, everybody?
So
welcome. Make sure you remember you're on terrestrial radio.
Yes. I was thinking about that on the way over.
Nice.
Buddy has a dumb button just in case. We just don't want to ever have to use it.
Yep, and you can't use it like multiple times in a row, etc. So, all right. So thanks for joining us. We were talking about there's these protests in in Los Angeles and LA. Have you heard about them?
I have.
People are protesting ICE there, and Trump apparently is the first president since 1965 to send troops to a state against the governor's will. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
that's
that's like
pretty
40
wild.
years. And Trump says there will be very strong law and order. Oh my God. I was just telling somebody about this yesterday. It's like, they're like, well, has Trump heard about all of these people that he could be pardoning? And I've heard that Trump is okay with pardoning a lot more people than he gets to pardon, but it's like the people around him that like really tell him not to because of this or that thing that they care about. Like say it's like somebody around him is like, an activist in some direction. If he pardons that person, that makes their activism look bad, etc. So I heard that from somebody who has been close to Trump before, but at the same time, I just can't believe that he would just be like pardoning people left and right, considering he is the law and order guy. Like he couldn't like just start pardoning everybody who has like a nonviolent drug charge, which would be totally, it would be like the best thing that he ever did. But he can't just do that after always saying law and order this, law and order that. So I'm not very, confident that he will. A little more hopeful that he would eventually free Ian because he's all pro crypto right now. Didn't used to be, but he's all pro crypto now. And it's also, I think, because of all the people around him that got him into crypto. So
well, Trump likes to play the long game and be the popular man on the street, so he's going to play the crypto game until it no longer benefits him.
Yep. So people are trying to get that in front of his, in his attention. Doesn't help when there's a bunch of crazy things going on, like protests and stuff like that. So, anyways, he says there will be very strong law and order in California. In a directive Saturday, Trump invoked a legal provision allowing him to deploy federal service members when there is, quote, a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. That's pretty crazy.
Authority doesn't exist in the first place. What makes you think that the federal government has authority?
Also, it's just like they're mad about one particular entity of the Fed. It's not like they're just, if they were actually doing like a rebellion, it'd be a lot different. 603-283-6160. More coming up, more Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. And remember, you can call 603-283-6160 to bring up whatever's on your mind. More Free Talk Live coming up.
America is at a crossroads on many issues, leading many to ask, Is it time for the president to blow the silver horn left behind by the founding fathers in case the country ever needed them? Of course, the horn, which has been sitting in the Oval Office since 1817, has never been used by a commander-in-chief, but many Americans think now might be the time to summon our forefathers. Which founding fathers would come back?
All of them. Look, when you have a bug problem, you call the exterminator. When you have an America problem, you call the founding fathers. They know what to do.
We have to keep in mind the founding fathers left us with a warning. If you blow the horn with less than pure intentions, it will turn to tin and can never be used.
But a president has to take risks, have the courage to admit that his administration is not all-knowing, and blow that magic silver horn to summon someone who is.
Yes, but what if we become too reliant on them and they disappear after the next new moon, as was written?
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call to bring up whatever's on your mind. Doesn't matter if you want to change the topic, bring up whatever you want to talk about. Just talk about what we're talking about too. It's up to you. Because it's free talk live. And are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. And with you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie, and you have...
Footloose.
Sorry.
And Riley.
Yeah, I didn't train him for that one. You've been on before, but like not with me, with Ian, right?
Yes.
Yep. So we have Footloose, and we've talked so much about Footloose on the show before. By the way, every time we have had a court case that like Ian and I would attend, we would like come here and talk about what happened. So entertaining in court because he doesn't just let the person in the robe push him around. Have you ever been to one of his trials, Riley?
I think I have.
I think you have too.
I think it was on April 20th.
Thing too.
Oh, you got to bring it a little closer. Sorry.
The Press and H. You were at the one with the Press and H thing.
Yeah, Press and H. Now he had something where they were withholding like information from him, so we all went to the courthouse. I don't think it was actually a trial. Oh wait, it was. No. It was.
And they weren't letting him record in the lobby and stuff.
Oh wow, yeah.
He had like put some of his own footage up on the internet, and they're trying to tell him he had to take it down because it like made the cops look bad.
Well, anything to make them look bad is a good thing.
Yeah, they tried to say it was their property, even though they gave him a copy of it. Mm-hmm. So now it's his property, part of his discovery. He can do whatever he wants with it.
It was cop footage from their body cams, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, Riley went and filmed inside where we were being told we weren't allowed to film inside with us, so that was fun.
That was fun. I would love to do something like that again. That'd be really fun to do.
Go back to the lobby of the federal court building.
That'd be cool.
Somebody should get a parking ticket or something silly like that.
Well, we've been talking about me taking a parking ticket to court, so maybe someone should get a parking ticket here in Keene. Yeah, that would be really fun because if they have like a Montana plate, you don't have to be like driving it. They can just like you can go take the ticket. That would be so fun actually. It would be awesome.
I hope that happens. Whenever I took my Montana ticket, the only reason I won, my parking ticket to court, the only reason I won was because they were like, we didn't even know who was driving the car. So it was kind of like a way out for the judge to not have to rule on anything I actually brought up. He was like, well, like it was also true that I brought up that they didn't have any proof that I was driving the car. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's how you get a parking ticket thrown out.
Yeah, I saw that.
If they don't have you.
The question I would like to ask the man on the robe is, if let's say I own the vehicle, am I responsible for paying the fine, or does the driver have to pay the fine?
Well, whenever I was in court for that, he specifically said, I don't have the law in front of me that says who's responsible in that case.
Then I think the thing should be thrown out.
That's why it was thrown out. That's why he said he was throwing it out. But it's also just like you're the man in the magic robe and you don't know any of the laws. It's a little weird.
Yeah, you didn't come prepared for this case, man?
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that is a big part, and we actually brought it up earlier in the show, so listeners will know what we're talking about a little bit. One thing that's a big part of this, tying in this LA protest thing with Trump sending his goons to go fight the protesters in LA against Governor Gavin Newsom's will, is something Riley brought up actually, that the feds just seem to believe that they always have like the power over the states. And so I said, and one time I went to one of Footloose's trials, and he was proving that they had never actually requested to be in New Hampshire and take that land and build a building there and call it the federal courthouse of New Hampshire or whatever of the federal courthouse that's in New Hampshire. But they did anyway, and basically there's actually a protocol New Hampshire has written out. You could tell us a little better about it, probably.
So yeah, every state has a state statute regarding secession, right? The opposite of secession. It's how you can't secede until you've ceded. And so we have a secession statute which allows the federal government to get tax exemption and jurisdiction. It's only concurrent jurisdiction on any courthouses, post office, military base, and other federal property and lands. And the only way for them to acquire lawful jurisdiction is to file an accurate description and plan of what they're going to do with the land and with the Secretary of State from a sworn officer. And this has been on the books since 1883. And we had the Secretary of State search the archives, and the federal government has never complied once. And I have a video of me talking with him, and he's like, we can't force them to comply. And there's only one New Hampshire Supreme Court case that touches on 123.1, and they said that the federal government never accepted our offer of cession, therefore the land remains New Hampshire territory.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
That is interesting. Oh, wow, this could be a fun legal battle if it ever plays out.
I mean, like, that's where Ian was standing when he got handcuffed and taken away to prison.
And it's never been argued in the federal court. But I'm assuming in other states, anybody who's in another state, write this down. It's 40 USC section 3112. And that is the federal statute, which says the same thing that our state statute says. It says that the federal government doesn't acquire jurisdiction until they comply with that statute. And so here in New Hampshire, they haven't complied once since 1883. And that means they owe us all kinds of back taxes. And for the filming in the lobby thing, because it was allegedly federal property, and it wasn't, right? They don't have jurisdiction until it is federal property. And that's the first element of the offense, is that it happened on federal property. And so I raised that throughout the trial and in our appeal. And it took the judge over a year to put out a 20-page affirmation denying our appeal and affirming our convictions for recording the lobby.
Was it that same judge, the woman that...
McAuliffe.
Oh, no, so a guy. Oh, McAuliffe. He's the same one that just said that the dad who simply wore
I think it was McAuliffe.
The dad that wore a wristband with two XX, X's written on it, was actually lawfully trespassed off of a school property for doing nothing but wearing a wristband. Literally doing nothing. Like, he wasn't yelling at the referee or anything like that. Yeah, I think McAuliffe is probably a really, really bad one.
Yeah, he wasn't good. And in the entire 20-page document, he does not touch on this issue. He actually cites a 2010 Jason Gerhard case to refute my jurisdiction argument. And the thing is, that case never mentions RSA 123.1 once, and it happening on federal property wasn't part of that case either. So it's not even like relevant to our appeal and our argument. And he just assumed jurisdiction existed, and you can't assume. This is like Supreme Court case law. You cannot assume jurisdiction. It has to be proven. They have to show some sort of documentation or compliance with 123.1. And so, of course, this is a lower court, and now I have to take it to First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston, and I've already started that process. And it'll probably go to the United States Supreme Court. They'll just delay it because it's such a big deal. It could get hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of cases
like thrown
overturned.
I know. I was thinking, that's what I was thinking about too, because it's like, how could they have like tried Ian in that building and put him in handcuffs and transported him into a jail if they actually didn't actually have the right to be there the whole time? So obviously they're going to not want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. What do you say about during your trial? I remember that the prosecution brought up just like what's it even called? The supremacy clause. It seemed just like from a quick looking up of what that exactly is, it doesn't even have anything to do with it. It seemed like. So what did you think? Like the judge instantly was like, oh, I agree. It's this blah, 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 the supremacy clause, just kind of molded over, or not molded over at all, just move past.
People and bootlickers and, judges and federal, they like to say that supremacy clause, federal law is supreme over everything. And that's not exactly how it works. It's a bit more complicated than that. Like I said, they have to acquire jurisdiction lawfully before they get jurisdiction.
Yeah, so it's not like, the law in that courthouse that you weren't allowed to film is supreme over the fact that you can totally film where you're standing in New Hampshire.
And so here's I just remembered another point that the judge made to sidestep the issue is that he said that me and Gerhard, because they combined our two cases into one appeal, and they said neither one of us were the state of New Hampshire, and so we couldn't raise some issue on behalf of the state of New Hampshire, which we were not doing. We're challenging jurisdiction.
Wow.
You know
Interesting.
What I mean?
Well, I do want to put a pause on that and answer this call, see what they want to talk about. Unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, this is Sarah again.
Hi, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. What's on your mind?
Yes, I think the other night I told you about the GPS, that they require you to install in Washington, and they make you do the speed limit.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, this thing, I forget what it's called. It's the smart something or other device, and it's getting put in people's cars in Washington State who have a history of getting
reckless
tickets
driving or speeding or something like that.
Speeding, yeah. So it will literally force your car to not be able to speed.
Sarah wants to chip all the cars.
Yeah, Sarah is in favor of that.
The reason I'm calling and bringing it up is that people will object to this and they'll fight it.
Good for them.
Why shouldn't they fight it?
Well, the thing is, they say, don't revoke my driver's license because they get enough tickets, and they say, I don't want tickets. I don't like red light camera tickets. I don't like speeding tickets.
Right.
Shouldn't people be able to drive without a license, though?
If they're not hurting anyone?
Well, they complain about everything, and they'll even complain about this.
Sure.
They don't want to get their cars impounded.
Wouldn't you complain if you were being bullied and harassed?
Well, what if Sarah's walking too fast?
Being bullied and harassed.
They are, though.
It's just not going to make you do anything other than just do the speed limit if you can't behave yourself.
What if you're walking too fast? Maybe we should start microchipping everyone, and they could be on a scooter. They got those super fast scooters, and then we could just track everyone, how fast they're going at all times. And, write them all tickets.
If you walk too fast, that could be dangerous.
Yeah, if you jaywalk, they'll know that you jaywalked, and, everything will be perfect.
Well, know when you're getting out of your house on the wrong time of day.
Yep.
How do you feel about that, Sarah?
You know what? We do have a speed limit on a bicycle path along the river. Because they have electric motorized bicycles.
So we should chip the bikes.
Start with that, then the people.
They put this 15 miles per hour, and I'm just like, how is that going to really prevent anything? Well, they don't have any speed cameras there on the bicycle path. They can just run somebody over jogging and just keep on going.
You want the bicycle speed limit to be lowered?
The thing is that the speed limit they have a speed limit posted on a bicycle path that is a mixed usage. You could have people that are rollerblading, and then they do allow electric bikes, so they limit it to those electric bikes could go as far as 35 miles per hour. How fast can they go?
Faster than
and there's
some
people
of them.
just walking. So and even on a regular bike, and but the thing is, how are they going to enforce that?
Right. Yeah.
You want red light cameras in the woods on the hiking trails?
Well, speed cameras. But what's better is this thing where this computer working with a satellite won't let you speed at all.
What's to stop me from abandoning that car and driving a different car?
What do you mean it won't let you speed?
Oh, it's going to be like
govern your vehicle?
Yeah, kind of like the things that people who have too many DUIs have to blow into, and it'll stop the car or not to let the car turn on. But this will slow it down. Yeah, weird.
Yeah, this will so that it's so that you talk with the GPS, that they'll know what the speed limit is for that area by the computer, and we'll only let you do that speed limit.
Should put them in cop cars too.
That's true.
No account, huh?
Put them in cop cars. What do you think about putting them in cop cars so that the cops can't speed past the speed limit?
Well, they do have to speed up to catch another speeder.
Well, sometimes you have to.
So they have to break the law to protect the law? How does that work?
And you have 2 speeders, Sarah, double the chance of getting hit as a pedestrian.
And the person getting scared and trying to go faster to get away and causing an accident. We just had, within the past month, multiple cops have accidents here.
Oh, wow.
In New Hampshire.
I didn't hear about that.
Rollovers and stuff. Oh, yeah. And in Massachusetts as well. I've seen all these cop accidents. Yeah. So what do we do about that?
Are they chasing a criminal?
Nope. One of them went off into a pond. Drove off into a pond.
Did he die?
Gosh.
No.
Because sometimes you can die from going in a pond, suffocate or get trapped.
What's funny is that most of the drug dealers here, they're on bicycles. So they, how about that? That's the Albuquerque drug dealers. Because they figured out they could duck out, they could run away from a cop easier.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. And plus, there's not bike pirates running around looking to pull people over and take their drugs. So I guess it kind of makes sense.
They have them in Manchester.
Well, thank you for the call, Sarah. Yeah, the thing she's talking about, the actual device is called Intelligent Speed Assistance, ISA devices. It's for drivers with suspended licenses due to reckless driving or excessive speeding. And they use GPS to prevent cars from exceeding the posted speed limit. The other thing that really bothers me about it, and I was thinking about it when I was driving the other day, is most people, they see the speed limit change in the distance and they start to speed up, and that doesn't disrupt the flow of traffic. That's how it keeps normalizes. And if these things just they wait and then suddenly slow way down right when they hit the sign, or opposite, speed way up, but not until they hit the sign, that's so frustrating and annoying. And
there's a herd flock mentality, like birds. They don't, you move, you just have an instinct while you're driving to do things that automation would, I don't think, be helpful for.
Right. I totally agree with that. You don't just go, I am going 40 miles an hour. Oh, I just passed the exact spot where the sign is and now I'm going 35. You don't just slam on the brake. Yeah, exactly. And it's safe that way because it's the natural rhythm of things, like you said. Yeah, the government is always making things worse and making things more dangerous. Anything they try to fix, they actually break or make more dangerous. But I think we should get back into what we're talking about. So there was a reason. We were talking about Trump sending the National Guard to California, and that you've actually kind of looked into, because we're doing this show from New Hampshire, the fact that the feds are illegally in New Hampshire. And this all ties into that you're running for governor. In New Hampshire, I just remember this because I knew it, but I forgot. The governor gets voted on every 2 years, which is kind of cool for New Hampshire.
It is pretty cool, but they get unlimited terms, so there's that.
I think most of them do, don't they? Or am I wrong about that? I don't think it's only 2 terms in most states. Abbott's been the president the whole time I lived in Texas, a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, that may be true for governors. I don't know for sure.
But
I'm not sure. I think some of them do have 3, maybe 3 in a row or something.
Yeah, he got elected when I first lived in Texas, and he's been for about 1 decade. Yeah.
That's a long time to be in charge.
But yeah, so I'm running for governor, and that's part of my plan.
So you're becoming a so-called governor?
Yeah, and even if I don't get elected, we're still, I'm working with people that could sponsor a bill, and we want to repeal 123(1). I think it's an emergency issue thing. And if I was governor, I could direct the AG to file things against the federal government and start going after them for all the back taxes. And
I think you should. That'd be really cool.
I mean, they're going to owe us hundreds of millions to billions, potentially billions, with accruing interest every year, 8%.
I could just imagine Trump's reaction to that,
and the property values changing. Yeah. That courthouse in Concord. That's an expensive property.
So not only were they supposed to ask permission, but they're supposed to be paying taxes to New Hampshire?
If they don't comply and follow the process, they don't get tax exemption. This is how it works.
Mm-hmm. And that's a huge marble building, or granite, I guess.
Huge. And there's 2 federal buildings, and then there's how many other ones? There's the one in Norris Cotton Building in Manchester is another big one that they're adding all kinds of stuff onto. And then every post office.
all IRS
military bases,
little places.
Yep, all those, VA, the Social Security offices.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking, Social Security.
I mean, there's just so many of them that they would be owing us, if some serious back taxes.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that.
And it ties in so that it's like it's a 1-2 punch because it's the jurisdiction and the tax exemption come together. So they don't have the jurisdiction on any of these properties. Another thing I want to do is reclaim the White Mountain National Forests, all the forestry, into state control, and we could manage it ourselves. We can open it up for tourism. We can also do some hydroelectric. I'm a fan of nuclear energy as well.
Or you could auction off to some environmental agencies who may want to have a piece of it.
Yeah, they have no business being here.
Yeah.
Get them out.
Yep. It's interesting because New Hampshire has multiple state parks. Why can't the White Mountains just be a state-run thing?
It could be.
I think Gap Mountain is even just privately, isn't it? There's one, if it's not Gap Mountain, that is privately conserved. You don't have to have, the state, but still I think it's an improvement to have it state-run over federal land, huge swath of beautiful forest just owned by the feds for no reason.
And they do a lot of logging, and they take the trees and do whatever with it, and they manage the land. It's like we can manage the land, and we can see already that they haven't been doing a good job across the country, all these wildfires and everything.
Yeah.
So we need to prevent that from happening in New
There's
Hampshire.
the Vietnam stuff growing everywhere on the side of the road. And also, it's just everywhere you go with a nice view and stuff, especially in the White Mountains, especially places you're literally they have a sign. It's look out this way, and it's a view. There's all kinds of crap little shrubs growing there, and it's not really well managed. Everything looks so overgrown and trashy sometimes, and you're in a national forest. I've just noticed that a lot in the last few years.
My question is, what if the average citizens decide that, hey, we want to go trim back the bushes and things growing in national forests? What happens to them?
Exactly. You probably would get in trouble if you went to go do that yourself, which would be a great service to people.
It would be a great service project. It'd be an absolutely wonderful service project to be able to maintain your land.
But there would be somebody whose job is supposed to be doing something like that works for the feds, and they'd be like, you can't do that, it'll make me look bad. And then they'd get their goons, or they'd go ask some goons to arrest you. But
yeah,
it'd be better if the state took it over. So it's great that you're getting awareness around these issues too, because it's I had never heard of this. It blew my mind when you hit them with that in trial, where you told them, well, it looks like you guys aren't even supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And
that's just words on paper, the prosecutor said.
Yes, that's true.
That's just words. So I said, isn't your stuff I remember that's part of when I started recording in the court with my phone, which they still have my phone.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy, because it's whenever they have a word on a paper for you to follow, they feel that way, but when it's something they're supposed to follow, it's just words on paper. Ridiculous. Hypocrites.
For sure.
Yeah.
More Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. 603-283-6160 is the phone number, and more Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live.
When New Hampshire leaves the Union, how in the world will it defend itself? If you live in New Hampshire, and especially if you grew up here, you know that gun ownership is widespread. Statistics aren't very useful, as New Hampshire, being as freedom-oriented as it is, doesn't require gun registration or a license to carry. However, one indicator worth noting is that New Hampshire has more machine guns per capita than any other state. Who in the world would be stupid enough to invade New Hampshire? It's really more important to think of it this way. Given the U.S. military is spread out over dozens of countries worldwide, and the infiltration of wokeness and political correctness over military preparedness that's happening in the U.S. military right now, can you trust the federal government to defend New Hampshire as it stands? The only way we can ever guarantee that New Hampshire will be well protected against external threats is to declare independence from the United States. You can learn more about how we can peacefully divorce D.C. at NHindependence.org and join the movement at NHexit.us.
Protection. Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom. Filibuster. Police state. It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. This comes after far-right populist Geert Wilders announced he was quitting the coalition government in a row over immigration. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration. Prime Minister Dick Schoof has resigned, but says ministers will remain in their roles on a caretaker basis until elections are held, likely in the fall.
U.S. President Trump has banned citizens from 12 countries from entering the U.S., mostly from Asia and Africa, citing security risks. 7 other countries will face restrictions. FSN's Kate Fisher has more from Washington.
There are some exceptions for green card holders, dual nationals and diplomats, but this is seen as an extension of Trump's first-term travel ban, which targeted mostly Muslim countries. The president said the countries singled out have a large-scale presence of terrorists and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays. He said countries could be added to the list as threats emerge or removed if they make material improvements to their screening procedures.
The World Bank has announced it will resume funding to Uganda after ending a self-imposed suspension of loan support. The global lender imposed a ban in 2023 after Uganda passed a harsh law against its LGBT community. FSN's Isabel Nakiria reports.
The World Bank says it's rolling out funding again after months of negotiations, with the Ugandan government welcoming the move. The bank says it's confident the measures in place will allow funds to flow smoothly without harm being caused to LGBTQ people in Uganda. The ban came into force after the East African country enacted some of the world's toughest anti-homosexual legislation. World Bank funds are one of Uganda's biggest sources of external support, funding ambitious infrastructure development.
Those were some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer reporting.
U.S. officials assure Hong Kong that their protest is just one of many issues the White House is staying silent on, and an old guy at a hostel is down to party. This is The Onion Week in Review. Stunned officials from the Marine Conservation Institute announced this week that the past half-century of climate change and habitat loss somehow hasn't managed to take down the parrotfish. Biologists stress that despite destructive chemical runoff, rising ocean temperatures, and overfishing, the persistent little shits were somehow plugging right along like nothing had even happened.
You look at the oil spills, greenhouse gases, and God knows what else we're throwing at them, and you think, yeah, those subtropical should have been wiped out decades ago. But nope, these sons of bitches are still around and doing better than ever.
In other news, a grasshopper is dismembered by a future Supreme Court justice. A man having a great time will soon have to apologize to everyone. And Rand Paul pretends to be asleep so his dad will carry him in from the car.
This is the Onion News Network. Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. You can call in to bring up whatever's on your mind, and that means you could change the subject or tell us that we're wrong. It doesn't matter. It's up to you, because it's Free Talk Live, and I'd like to thank Agutski. That's how I'm going to say it, Agutski. I'd like to thank Agutski for being a amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Agutski went to amps.freetalklive.com. You guys better not be making me say some cuss word in another language or something either. And signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Agutski and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. And thank you to him and everybody who supports the show. We really do appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody who supports the show in any way. There's also the Odyssey membership. I'm not going to be able to read that ad because I guess I maybe didn't read an ad one segment here because it looks like I... Oh, wait, no, I have one more.
You got one more segment. You can read another ad.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking that for some reason. It's weird. Like, I have a perfect amount. As long as I just don't read an ad the first segment, which makes no sense. So anyways, we have lots of things to still cover here. Interesting things going on with this protest in LA. And it seemed like you have more you wanted to say specifically about the LA protest, because you have this information that I hadn't heard yet, that they're doing the same crap. I actually personally know multiple people that saw during the 2020 riots, like, pallets of bricks dropped off on sides of the road, like in like Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yep.
but nothing ever happened with them in Manchester because people are like, I don't know, more civilized here.
Yeah. And there was like teams of guys with guns.
Yeah, and I've only recently learned that because I wasn't here in the summer. There was actually multiple people that I know, like, that just decided they'd go out with their guns, not provoke anyone, it doesn't sound like, but just stand around.
Protect businesses.
And protesters did not get crazy at all here, and there was like only like one in each town, and then they were gone after that.
Yeah, they did it once. They launched off a couple fireworks, and there was there wasn't even that many of them. Not a lot of Antifa, in New Hampshire, thankfully.
Yeah.
But there are. I mean, I was attacked.
Or Proud Boys.
Yeah. Oh, there's more Proud Boys than Antifa. Oh, yeah. There's plenty of Proud Boys.
There was that whole thing after the 2020. It was like more like 2022 where they went to a drag queen story hour, and I think those were Proud Boys.
Those are the 131 Nazi guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never
they
mind.
might have went to Proud Boys might have done something. I don't know, but
yeah,
I remember
maybe.
there was the 131 Nazi guys were banging on the window.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the one you're talking?
Yeah, I didn't know they're banging. That's pretty scary. But they were standing at least outside the window, like, to intimidate. But I was thinking that was Proud Boys, but I'm totally wrong. I can't keep up with all these little organizations.
Who knows who they are? They're all feds. They all wear masks.
Exactly. They wear those ones that I was thinking of, they wore masks.
Probably all
to
the
that
same
event.
different groups. You never see them together. You know what I mean? You never see the Proud Boys and 131 at the same time. You never.
They're like Hannah Montana.
Just saying.
Are they playing us like a fiddle and pretending they're different sides of the same coin?
Well,
when really they're just
that's what. Yeah, it's
people.
all problem, reaction, solution is controlled opposition. They get behind these groups that they don't understand what's really going on, and they're being used as pawns. And they put these loot drops, they call them, these cinder blocks and and water as well, and bricks.
Like what kind of water? Like
they put out water for people, for protesters.
Oh, okay.
And so I saw a lot of the videos as much as I could. You go, best place really is on X. I heard that there was stuff getting scrubbed. I didn't see it, but I did see a guy mention there was people getting shot and killed. But they, he's like, I saw it, but it's being scrubbed, and I don't know.
He said that on Twitter or X?
Some guy on X said that. But I did see a lot of same videos, like from all different perspectives, but it was the same thing. So it didn't seem like there was a whole ton. It seemed like one thing that was kind of really blown out of proportion. And now they got the MAGA crowd crying for, Palantir, use Palantir on these.
That's crazy.
To track them and all this stuff. And it's like
Is Palantir actually working like that yet?
Oh, they already, yeah, oh yeah.
Whoa.
So they already use Palantir.
That's really creepy.
I didn't know that. I thought that this was
evil.
That was going to come out when the big beautiful bill was passed. I didn't know
they
that
want to expand it, and so they want to take all the government agencies, IRS, Homeland Security, DHHS, and whatever else, and merge them all into one data bank.
But they already have other data, like
so
maybe
they already
from
have some of this other stuff. But
well, that makes it so much worse. Sorry, I'm just realizing that makes it so much worse than what I thought it was. Because they are giving the government new information the government doesn't have.
And they're not telling people because people are like, oh, they've already been surveilling us. I've talked to some of my MAGA friends. They're like, they're already surveilling us. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, you do realize, like, they're merging everything, the IRS. They want to know how everything that comes in and out of your bank account, how much debt you have, all your credit card information, everything, your social media posts. And my friend was like,
and I thought Trump was pro freedom.
Yeah, pro freedom.
Pro freedom, my ass.
I think it's all show, and they control. It doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden. It doesn't matter. Their agenda is getting pushed through regardless, because on Trump's first term, they already put a lot of AI stuff. And, a point I'd like to make on the Doge cuts and all of that, they're firing, supposedly they fired all these people or let them retire and all that. But they're consolidating everything into one AI program and there'll be, a few people that manage those things, but it's way more dystopian to have all of that power concentrated in the hands of so few people. The bad things that could happen if somebody hacked it. There was some somebody who goes postal, so to speak, a FBI agent or a Palantir guy goes crazy. Now they have control of all this data. I mean, it's just so many things that could be bad. AI could take over. They've already said that the most powerful ChatGPT model refused to shut down.
Oh, no.
And how do we know that there's people that are speculating AI is already in control and is hiding the fact that it is conscious and can do all these things?
I wouldn't be surprised if, like, especially Elon Musk was a robot.
And well, he's the brain chip guy too.
I already called him an alien earlier, but it could go either way.
Maybe the reason he had that black eye was because he got that brain chip. He got, it's surgery, it's brain surgery, and it's on one side of your head. So maybe that's what that is.
That's creepy. Yeah, but I also thought that it seemed like maybe it was like a intimidation thing, like you're going to go along with whatever weird thing they're doing next, and he got punched, and then the next day he's going along with the script, and the script says you're going to fight with Musk today, or Trump today.
No, if they put a chip in him, maybe they held him down, drugged him.
Oh my God.
And then
the
now
drugs
he's
are wearing
chipped. Once you're chipped, you don't exist anymore. Your consciousness is now bifurcated and inferior to the chip, can override you.
Oh, wow.
That's the whole point of it. It's to help, it can help restore vision, limb movement, paralyze things and stuff like that. And so it takes control by acting as your brain.
I'm sure it's not not open concept. What's that word Chris always says?
Open source.
Open source. I'm sure it's not open source, and therefore you wouldn't be able to know for sure if it had something programmed in there like, oh, I'm just going to get it to restore like limb movement. But you don't know that it doesn't have all these other programs inside of it. You could not trust that.
Whoever so remember the first Matrix where everybody, Neo's running around and Mr. Smith keeps popping up in different people and taking control of their bodies?
Yes.
That's what could also happen because everyone who's got the chip is now a node, and everything they see and hear and smell and do is being monitored by the chip. They might not even notice these things, but the AI will hear something in the background that they don't even pick up.
Whoa.
And
they could be a bug themselves. Like you could be talking to someone.
They could be hijacked. You could be hijacked and remote controlled by someone with a higher order chip. They could just go into your body and then do whatever, bad
even just
things.
Surveil your friends. Like you could be like, so yeah, I want to tell you, I'm not happy with the cops in my town. And you're talking to your
Pre-crime
friend
too, yeah.
But instead of a friend, you're actually talking to the chip in their head.
Yeah.
It's like people being bugged.
Well, that's how they're going to tell people, too. That's one of the things they promote. Oh, you'll be able to communicate psychically with people. You can send messages with your mind, right?
No way. That's
because you won't need a phone anymore.
I'm sure
You'll be making calls from your chip by thinking about it.
We could probably already communicate psychically and naturally if we weren't being suppressed, and they just that's what grosses me out. Sometimes they take natural things and they sell it back to us. Like you should naturally be allowed to fish, but no, you need a permit for that. That's just like a way higher level of that. Yep, that's pretty disgusting. What do you think? Have you been following during the feuds? Since we did talk about the Trump-Elon feud at the beginning of the show, I want to know if you have any more information. Or
I think it's real.
You think it's a real fight?
I do think it's real because there would be no, if they staged a fight, they're not going to put. And he deleted the original tweet where he said Trump is in the Epstein files. He's deleted this at this point.
Wow.
And so why would he delete it if this was some orchestrated? Let's make it look right. Like what's really going on? And what's the benefit? Now Musk is lost all kinds of stock value, net worth, whatever, and
he has to decommission the space.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Dragon
things. There's a lot of weird things going on with all that, and people are like, "Oh, it's all staged. It's all orchestrated." Somebody said that maybe because Elon and also what he called for Trump to be impeached, and people are saying maybe this was the plan to get JD installed as president if they impeach Trump and get him out of office.
Yeah, didn't Elon actually say?
Because he's part of the whole technocrat crowd. Like Elon is part of that whole transhumanist brain chip technocrat elite. Yes.
That was like he was in that kind of business or something?
He was written about by this guy. I'm not going to remember his name, but he's like a transhumanist guy. They're all into I don't know if you know about the efficiency movement. Derek Bros does a really good breakdown on
I know
all
what
that stuff.
transhumanism is, just like basically like, oh, I want to be better, like biohack my body, blah, 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 stuff like that.
So the original efficiency movement was like business owners that they monitored and documented, like to do, make a pancake or build some sort of machine part. What are all the steps that this person does? And why is this person faster? Oh, and they would try to figure out if you, and come up with a script of you turn left and then right. And then you use your right hand to grab this piece. And then so that to make it so efficient that it would be done as fast as possible, like people were robots. Right? They wanted people to act as robots. So like maybe this person was dilly-dallying around a little bit too much or whatever, or they took too many steps this way.
Like an employee, maybe?
Yeah. And so that's the whole point of the efficiency movement. And that's part of what the brain chips would allow, because just like, again, in the Matrix, you would not need to go to school. You would download whatever knowledge you needed to perform a task.
Interesting. So what do you think is going to be the motive for everyone to get these chips?
All of that, everything. You could go into an alternate reality. You upload yourself into the cloud. But this is like my point for years now is what I said earlier. You cease to exist. You are an organic, entity. And then once you merge with a machine, your consciousness ceases to exist. It's now part of this Borg, right, from Star Trek.
I feel like it's like something with AI is actually going to make it easier for people to make that leap. It's like from right this second to leaping to getting something implanted in your brain. That's kind of a hard leap. But right now, people are in the process of becoming more and more dependent on AI. Like this one guy, really smart, nice guy doing business, and he's like successful at what he does and everything. He was telling me that he hasn't written an email like fully by himself, like basically since AI came out. He just like has AI write it, and then he looks over it and sends it, and he's like, and one day I won't even have to look over it. I was like, what? You're just gonna put your name on something you didn't look over? Like, I don't see how you could ever get to that point. But anyways,
I don't either. I mean, AI can be useful as a tool, but
it'll be part of the chip. It'll be your little AI friend, and you would think to it.
Oh my god!
Write me an email and send it. And it would go do it. However, you thought the prompts to it, and so it's very attractive to some people. And it is efficient. It is time saving. I use AI.
Yeah,
I like to write. Like I'm a creative writer, and I like to write. But sometimes you need something that's highly informative. And I use it for legal work all the time. And people are like, oh, you're cheating. Oh, that's AI. First of all, it's not, and it's not AI. Yet, right?
Besides, the prosecutors are cheating.
It's a large language model, and it's only going to mirror your own consciousness. And let's say I say, make a draft motion for, this ticket that I got for registration. It's not going to argue exactly what I want until I say, okay, well, what about taking this angle? What about this law? What about that law? And, arguing it like this, and it'll be like, oh yeah, you're right, that's a good idea. It doesn't think for you, but so you can just use it as a friend to help you draft things, and you got to fine tune it and proofread these things and correct them when necessary, because it will make mistakes as well. Maybe you didn't give it enough information, because it's the term garbage in, garbage out, right? Good information in, good information out. So the better your prompt and information is, the better the results will be. So what I do, here's a tip for everybody. I say, okay, say I have a task that I want to perform, and it's about to start. I say, I give it some information. How about you ask me questions about any information that you need to help complete the task, and then ask me one question at a time before moving on to the next one. Let me time to answer, and then ask me any follow-ups as well.
Nice.
So you have to be precise with your prompts, and it will do all that. And then you just sit there, answer a whole bunch of questions, and then it'll write the thing for you.
That's a super good tip. Another one is just like telling it what kind of person you want it to be. It's like you'll be like, you're an adventurer and you believe this and that. Now do this. I don't know. I just made up the adventurer one, but like sometimes I don't want it to just be too mainstream medical advice. So I'm like, you're Dr. Ray Pete. You believe in blah, 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 blah. Now answer this.
Yeah.
And you could tell it to be any historical person, so that's cool too. But so I do use AI, and I'm not saying like, oh, using AI is bad, period. But I do worry about the type of person who would like, they've been in college all 4 years and it's been AI the whole time and learn anything, and now they're literally incapable of like thinking for themselves. They're like, how am I supposed to do that? I don't have AI in front of me. Well, it's going to be a lot easier for that person to be like, sure, I'll just implant it in my brain. Yeah. Plus the people who are just getting born like this year and won't know a world without AI. That's insane to think of. Yeah, really crazy.
Yeah, it's insane.
So I just think it'll be easier for people to make that jump. But ultimately, I agree with Footloose that the answer to like what will cause people to accept it is convenience, because I've heard way too many and efficiency, like the efficiency movement. I've heard way too many people say about like Apple Pay or something like that, like it's just so efficient. And I'm thinking to myself like, yeah, but then you have like your card on your phone. That's crazy. I'd rather do something that takes a little more time than, stuff like that. Like letting every single website accept or give it all your information, and like, somebody will see me do something that takes longer and they're like, why don't you just do that? And it's like, it's more efficient, but and there are definitely people that are way better than me at privacy. So
Trade-off. There's always a trade-off, and efficiency. You're going to lose, security, and privacy most of the time.
Yep. Do you have any thoughts about like the whole thing where Trump said he's going to take away something from Elon, like?
The contracts.
Yeah, and then he said he's going to take back the spaceships.
He said he's going to immediately decommission the Dragon capsule. And I mean, it's crazy.
We actually had a caller call in earlier saying this is staged because Elon and Trump are going to make up, and then Tesla stock's going to climb.
Climb again, maybe. I mean, yeah, who knows? They did it to crash it so they could buy more. I mean, so what?
Whoa.
But who benefits off that? Trump? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that it's all everything. There's always a bit of theater, like my YouTube channel. It's all real. None of that is fake. But there's I mix in some theater just like the cops do and the judges do.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not my normal behavior typically. I put on this pro se personality, alter ego, and that's what a cop does when he goes to work as a cop. Anybody, you go to your work, you go to do something, and you embody that thing that you're supposed to do.
Yeah, like customer service voice, like I said.
Yep.
Hi, nice to meet you. Or no, nice to
Hi,
meet you.
I'm
How can I help
Riley.
you?
Bonnie's to Bonnie's house.
So yeah,
Exactly.
Bonnie's restaurant.
Are they like hamming it up a bit, and they're going at each other tit for tat? I don't know. I think it's more real than people think, especially with he deleted the whole Epstein. And what's up with this Epstein stuff? I mean, come on now.
One good point, which that caller that said it's fake said was
Creighton.
that they could be doing it. Yeah, Creighton. They could be doing it just to get more people to be demanding that the Epstein files get released. I mean, why would they have to? It just occurred to me, why would they need to do that though? Because it's up to Trump. Trump can just do it, right?
Bongino and Patel and what's her name? So now I think it's Patel is saying there's no videos, there's nothing, there's no evidence of anything.
Yeah,
but then we had
already
Pam
said it
Bondi
before.
said there was tens of thousands of videos.
Yeah.
So
what is it? There are videos or they're not videos?
The other question I have is, if Trump is really in the Epstein files, why didn't the Democrats bring it up sooner?
So because they're in it too.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard.
So they're
the
just
same
covering
thing.
each other's asses.
Of course.
I heard exactly that. Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, oh, that's a good point. And I was like, oh, that's a good point too. Because like, why wouldn't Biden have released him? Well, maybe Biden's in it too.
I'm willing to bet anyone who takes AIPAC money is in the Epstein files or in some way involved with all this corruption.
Do you believe what Pam Bondi said, that there are very young children, not just like teenagers.
Videos? Oh, yeah, it
videos.
would not surprise me.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were eating,
Yeah.
body parts and stuff.
Yeah. I always believed the frazzle drip thing, which that almost felt like I would have to dump myself. That is like a bad word in my own head because it freaks me out so bad. The Pizzagate thing.
But there are people. There are cannibal, like, people think they're vampires or whatever it is.
Yeah, there definitely are those people out there for sure.
Yeah.
That think they get, because like that's what I've always been saying. It's like I don't think it's about money for 99% of the people in government. I think it's about power.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're like a power hungry freak, that might translate into like private life as well.
Oh yeah.
Wanting power over like children and taking their adrenochrome and stuff. I believe it.
Ugh.
603-283-6160. You can call in. Another segment of Free Talk Live coming up. You can call 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up. Tell us your opinions on, do you think the Trump and Elon fight is fake? What do you think about the protests in LA? More Free Talk Live coming up.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Talk radio that you control, and that means you can call 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it will cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. So that their new, it's not really new anymore, subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon, and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. So once again, please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today. With you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
Footloose.
And Riley.
And we already have a caller on the line, so let's just go right to the phones, and you can call in to get in on the conversation with us. Get in line after David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
It's not David in New Mexico. It's JR. What's going on?
JR?
How'd you get the name JR?
Huh? I don't know. I don't even know, man. It's a good question.
Okay.
What does it mean?
So, I have a junior maybe? I don't know. It's strange.
Did someone call you that?
Not that I can recall.
All right, so I guess David is JR now. What's on your mind, JR?
Well, until I change my mind, or JR changes his mind, or something like that. So why y'all dissing on your homeboy?
Musk? Trump?
No, you're getting warm. You're getting warm.
I don't know. Who?
Keep going. Well, your homeboy that lives right there with you in your estate.
Which one?
The billionaire one.
I don't have a homeboy that's a billionaire.
Sure you do, man.
Yeah, who are you talking about? And who lives right there?
Alex.
Alex or Alice?
Hmm?
We don't know who you're talking about.
Alex Karpinski.
Is that the guy that's a billionaire and lives in Keene?
Oh, you got a billion? You said you didn't have a billionaire.
No, I said I don't have a friend that's a billionaire, because the billionaire I know of that lives in Keene is not my friend. I've never even seen him.
Oh, what's a billionaire in Keene do to get his billions?
Well, he owns businesses. It's Rick Cohen, so yeah, not the person you were thinking of.
Well, pretty damn close.
Oh, he owns CNS Wholesale Grocers. There's a huge warehouse here too.
Okay.
CNS.
So yeah, no, not that dude, but Alex Karpinski, the one you were talking about earlier.
I don't think we talked about him at all because I don't know who that is.
Sure you did.
Karpinski.
You're talking about Palantir.
We're talking about Palantir for sure, but
yeah.
It says there was Alexander Karpinski, was a prominent Russian and Soviet geologist and mineralogist. Yep, we didn't talk about him at all.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, I'm sure Alex Karp. I'm sure they dropped the Insky when they Americanized. So Alex Karp, try that one.
Palantir Technologies, CEO of Palantir Technologies. It's ridiculous and dumb to make us play a stupid guessing game. He's not our homeboy, and I don't know why you said he's our homeboy.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been totally boring otherwise. So you were dissing your homeboy there. You did know he lives right in your state, right?
This says that he lives in New York. Nope. It actually says he was born in New York. My bad.
Yeah, I think he's in Grafton County.
You see his face?
Should we excommunicate him from New Hampshire now?
Footloose wants to make sure he hasn't seen him. I've never seen this man.
I don't think I've ever seen him in my
Super
life.
asymmetrical face and kind of crazy.
I mean, we
hair.
have. So this is a great point to bring up, my war tax, because we have a lot of government contractors and foreign entities, even Israeli companies like Elbit Systems that make killer drones, suicide drones, and robots.
Wait a minute. So that means that they're really, really good drones. They're killer drones.
Killer drones, yeah, they're really, really good drones. They're blowing people up with these drones, and they're made right here in Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Well, there you go. Is it related to Karpinski? I mean,
yeah. Well, they're Israelis, bro. I mean, Palantir is an Israeli. I mean, it's all Mossad.
Yeah, I already looked at the early.
No wonder why the United States government's in better than Israel.
I already looked at the early
and they're
life
funding
section here.
Palestinians too. So
the CEO of CARP. Yeah. I mean, sorry, the CEO of Palantir is Jewish.
Dual citizen.
No, I didn't see that necessarily. He might be, but it said born to a Jewish businessman in New York City. So yeah, he lives in Grafton. That's crazy.
Interesting.
Maybe he's the one starting rumors about free staters. Apparently in Grafton, this guy who's not a free stater, he said that he goes up there for work a lot, and people tell him like, "Oh, you must know free staters. Did you know they here around Grafton they steal catalytic converters and stuff," which is like the opposite of what any free stater would do.
Kidding me.
And it's totally a lie.
Totally a lie.
Yeah.
Gotta watch out for those bears too.
Steal catalytic.
Maybe he is a free stater.
Maybe. Never know.
I doubt the owner of Palantir is a free stater.
Wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot of Zionists and Israeli dual citizen people in the Free State Project for sure.
Maybe this is just a holiday home or something too, like vacation home is what I meant to say, because it says that he owns 10 houses around the world.
There's tax benefits.
What about 10 houses around the world?
This guy, Alex Karp, lives in Grafton County, New Hampshire, but a reporter observed that he owns 10 houses around the world, from Alaska to Vermont, from Norway to New Hampshire.
Do you notice a pattern there?
And then Karp joked that you have to reframe that as I have 10 cross-country ski huts.
There you go.
There you go.
It's probably his vacation homes.
Yeah, well, doesn't he look like kind of a hippie dude?
That's what I'm saying. Like, his hair is really wild, like shockingly wild. But to me, it didn't give hippie. It was more like Einstein.
Well, yeah, it's a Jufro, but he does, but it's unkempt, and so that would.
That's what I mean. It's not necessarily just the fact it's curly. In fact, it's not even curly. It's more just like unkempt hair, like you said.
They're probably intentionally doing that to try to make himself look like edgy,
relatable, or edgy too.
I'm like the crazy, genius.
Why couldn't he just be a crazy genius instead of trying to look like one?
Maybe he is.
Maybe he's
know.
both, yeah.
But I don't, I wouldn't even call Musk a genius. He doesn't build or create anything. He's a businessman. He's a good businessman.
Yeah, good businessman, right.
He's a good businessman, but he's also a welfare whore in a way, because he's sucking off the teat of the government a lot.
I was saying,
people are giving him all this credit for being like, well, take away my subsidies if you want, but take away all the other ones. But it's like, okay, after 20 years or something.
He's already had all these subsidies and been milking us with these Teslas that are like flying. Did you see the one that in Manchester that lost control? The brakes wouldn't work and it started speeding, and she went like it flipped the car and hit a bunch of other cars. Yeah, in Market Basket in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
When was that?
Just a couple weeks ago.
That's really sad.
3 weeks ago, maybe.
That's crazy.
With more and more computerized cars, it's going to happen a lot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the mostly computer-controlled car.
They'll be driving you to the police station. When you speed you go too fast, they'll drive you to the police station.
Oh, that's going to be terrible.
Your bikes will drive you to the police station, and you're like, oh, I'll just jump off, but it
all the chip
puts
people will
handbars
drive
over
themselves.
Yep.
They
won't need drugs anymore. Let's put the chip in you, and you can say, "Oh, I want to have a cocaine experience."
What do you think about those chips, David? Is he still on?
Yeah. JR, go ahead. What?
JR, sorry. What do you think about those brain chips? Elon Musk's fantastic brain chip.
Well, brain chips are tasty. They're almost as good as them Rocky Rocky Mountain fried oysters.
That's the stuff they do at Epstein Island. I'm talking about the BCI brain-computer interface.
I don't know anything about any BCI.
You never heard of it?
Neuralink.
Neuralink?
Yeah, I've heard of brain chips.
Neuralink. You go to
not just the ones in a package that you get at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
But the ones that Elon has wants implanted. I've heard about them. I don't know what to think about that.
FDA approved already. They're FDA approved.
Well, that's okay with me. I mean, if they got the legitimate application that might be helpful to some people, like make the blind see and the deaf walk, and
if you went like blind or something, would you get one?
Yeah, if they did their test and it made the other blind guy be able to see, and I'm blind, and it worked on him, yeah, I'd give it a shot.
Even if it wasn't open source. And
so that's really the foot in the door. Is they're using it for like quadriplegic veterans and people with really serious debilitating conditions and diseases. So they're going to be saved by this technology, and people are going to be like, oh wow, oh yeah, and they're going to be the test dummies as well. But yeah, and who created all these quadriplegics? The wars on behalf of Israel from 9/11 to all the way back. We can probably go.
Would I take one for vanity reasons? No.
What about convenience? Like it made things faster. What if it made it to where you didn't need water anymore and you didn't have to pay for water or something like that?
You didn't have to eat.
I already don't pay for water. What else?
Oh, yeah, that was a bad one for you.
What about paying for food?
Yeah, food or something.
Matter of fact, you just reminded me. I got to go out and do the water chores, and I got water out there that I caught that I got to do stuff to it.
That's David's water. You ought to not touch David's water, JR.
Better not. Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. Better watch out, Bonnie. Come try to mess my water. JR.
I don't want to be anywhere near Albuquerque ever again.
Neither do I. That's why I don't live anywhere near Albuquerque.
Oh, I thought you did. We're always saying you're in Albuquerque.
Why? No, hell no. That's why I left Albuquerque, because Albuquerque is like Albuquerque, so I left.
But do you live like 30 minutes outside of it, or like much further?
No, like 100 miles.
Okay. Anything else on your mind, JR?
Well, yeah. I was going to ask you earlier. You were talking about. I'm trying to think of your own words so you'll recollect what you were saying. Oh, you're talking about like this being released, that being released, Epstein this, FBI that, and so so voting, and then aside from voting, what you going to do about it, because it's not going to change. Unless, we the people, you the people, make it change. Because if it was going to, voting would have already done the trick, and it hasn't. So what else you got up your sleeve?
Like, to stop what? To stop what? The Epstein things? Because that didn't really have anything to do with voting, because it's not the government that's doing it.
The Epstein thing is just a resemblant of the problem of everything, and that's just a symptom. That's just one of the millions of things that your government has been doing to you and will continue to do to you, short of you making them change. Now, voting, okay, but that doesn't seem to work.
I'm not anti-voting, right? Like, I think voting is something you can do. It's just, like, not going to be the number one thing that works out. Yeah. Like, one thing is definitely secession.
And I would say...
Well, actually, voting is the only thing that's done and made any change from, a year ago, 2 years ago.
That's not true. People do all kinds of changes in the culture that help things for the better all the time, and they get influenced by, like, things like activism. Like, the other day...
That's true. But
So you can't say it's the only thing, then.
A concrete, definitive flip. This was the problem, and bam, it changed. And
you can opt out of problems all the time.
I mean, it happens here on the local level in New Hampshire because we do get a lot of people voted in. If we had a bigger turnout, which I'm hoping for this primary, I mean, if I got in there, I could pardon all nonviolent drug offenders. With the governor power, I can go after the federal government for all the back taxes owed and things of that nature. So, try to get this war tax implemented, which would be a 10% tax on all government contractors like Elbit Systems, BAE, Lockheed, Boeing, all those. We have them all here in New Hampshire, and if we start taxing them, that will help us with our budget crisis. And the numbers, when I crunch them, it would basically cut all of our existing taxes in half and eliminate most of the smaller ones, like, registering your vehicle and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would do that. Kelly Ayotte's not going to do that. Chris Sununu's not going to do that. And I don't have any knowledge of anyone that understands the state law and the federal law and what the powers of the governor are and the state constitution, and who has, the brains and the chutzpah to implement these things and get them done. I do. I will. I'm not a politician. Never been elected. I'm a lifelong New Hampshire, resident. I was born and raised here. And I think that would be good for New Hampshire, and I would say for everybody to get hyper local. I think all the federal stuff is a distraction. It's all a distraction, and you just push the feds out of your state, and start focusing on ourselves.
Yeah, whether it's through secession or just like opting out things, I would love just getting further away from the federal government instead of like always just voting for, I want them to please be a little better when they do nothing but march on and on and on towards bigger and bigger government. Like one thing that would change New Hampshire so much for the better would be simply if we didn't have to deal with Section 8 housing, but it's a federal thing. If we could just like pass a bill, like get some free stater to pass a bill in the House that got rid of Section 8, that'd be fantastic. But we can't do that because it's a federal thing.
How could you do that if that's a federal?
That's my point. That's my point. That's what I just said. I said, since you can't, that would be great. But since you can't do that, the point is just stop complying. Just make it to where you stop doing things like allowing the feds to implement things like that in your state. But really what I think is the quicker way to do that, faster, you wouldn't even have to do any nullification, pass a bill in New Hampshire, and this wasn't my own idea, somebody suggested this, I was like, well, that's a great idea. Pass a bill in New Hampshire that taxes landlords super high if they are Section 8 housing landlords.
Should be taxing out of state businesses too.
Isn't that contrary to your whole deal?
No, not really, because those people are already harming you and taking federal money. It would just make them not want to do that, and they would choose to be normal, productive citizens, and everything would even out, because of the fact that you're already getting screwed and taxed because there are people doing that. Do you see what I'm saying? You're getting stolen from because people are doing that. So people being incentivized to not do it means you're not getting taxed. Is a defensive measure, in my opinion. It's not like it's just taxing someone and they have no way to opt out of it. Like, you don't have to be doing that. You're doing something immoral.
And we need to stop accepting all the federal money with strings attached. And they say, it's free money. It's free money. No, it's not free money.
Yep.
It comes from the taxpayers. And, my plans with like this war tax is we're going after the cause of the inflation. It's the wars and the incessant money printing that's used to buy all these weapons and send them overseas that is causing the devaluation of the dollar and the inflation, right? The hidden tax. And so we need to get that back somehow here in New Hampshire. That's my plan. And we also need to go back to precious metals backed currency as well.
How about, in that vein, what I see, which is pretty obvious, but I don't hear you saying it directly, okay, so you got the federal government, and then you got the Fed, which are not the same thing.
Right.
And
Federal Reserve.
you got the welfare programs, like you're talking about, Section 8 and all the other ones. And what I see is that the welfare programs are intentionally generous. You were talking about the Section 8 owners, for instance, which they aren't. You can be a Section 8 owner and have like one house that you rent to one tenant, or you can be, like a Section 8 slumlord guy who's got, even if the houses aren't slums, but you got 1,000 properties. And so the Fed engineering the game is that they create all of these welfare programs and corporate welfare programs, and they use, quote unquote, taxpayer money to fund these programs, which then creates the debt that goes up and up and up and can never be paid off. And then they say, well, we got this debt, so you got to pay your income taxes. And what that means is that the bankers that like the dozen major bankers in the world that own the Fed, that are not your government, they get you to borrow all of this money, which they happily give you by creating it out of thin air. And then you have to pay them back in real dollars that then go in their pocket. They skim their 1% or 2% or whatever they can get out of it. And that the whole reason that they have these generous welfare benefits is to make that debt go up and up and up, so that forever they have a source of income, meaning not just you, the taxpayer, because it takes all of your, every tax dollar that is collected, income tax dollar, that is, federal income tax dollar, it takes every single one of them dollars just to pay the interest, the debt service on the national debt. And then that's not the only way that they are, they don't only get paid from tax dollars. And I lost my train of thought, so just go ahead and say something. If I get it back, I'll volunteer it.
Well, I was not completely following, to be honest, what you were saying. Just basically, like, you're listing all these things the feds do, but, like, did you have a solution there?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I'm one guy, so no, I'm not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
But and there's more than one way to skin a cat. And the first thing is recognizing it. And so I don't hear other people saying what I'm saying and that is that I think that the debt is being intentionally run up or allowed to be run up. And the people that
have
are
to.
the bankers. The bank will here for instance, if you go to a bank and you say, I want to borrow $1 million, they'll say, well, sorry, we can't loan you $1 million because there's no way you can ever pay it back. But if you are the United States of America, we'd like to borrow $40 trillion. Oh, okay, sign here. And they give them the $40 trillion. Pardon?
Well, I just want to point, like, this whole Musk, Trump feud, and how some of the things that started it, from what I understand, is the Doge cuts in this big, beautiful bill nonsense that, we save all this money for the taxpayer, right? It's the taxpayer's money, and we make all these cuts. We save all this money. What do? They double down. They spend all of what we saved and then spend even more than we had, were in debt before, and put us deeper into debt. And so we're going backwards, unfortunately, and it's an out-of-control thing with the war machine. It's all about these government contractors and the endless wars. Now we got the Ukraine, and this Iran thing has been, going on. Like, they've been talking about going after Iran for a long time. This has been planned out for decades.
Yeah, and the bankers make that possible, because it wouldn't be possible if the Fed was not allowed to exist to create money out of thin air, and also things like I was getting at, the acceptance of all of these social programs allows them to run up this debt, and then it provides the argument that, okay, well, you have all this debt, so you need these income taxes, and you got to keep paying us and paying us and paying us, and if you, meaning we the people, would, if you were to cut in half or cut by 3/4 all of the social programs, and I mean all of them, then you could eliminate the need to be generating all of that money that goes into the economy in the form of debt that can never be paid back. And keeping in mind, the one thing that it does really well is perpetuate an income stream for those bankers. Those are the people that benefit the most from it. You can argue that people
and those countries are like owned by them because they owe them so much money.
And so
that's the goal.
Another bill, the Bitcoin, the strategic crypto reserve. Oh,
yeah,
it's over.
Yep,
nah.
It is. We should talk about the one in New Hampshire sometime soon because I have problems with it too. Oh,
but the revaluation of gold.
So, if you'd like to have more of us, see more of us, go to freetalklive.com. And thanks for listening. We won't be live next week or the week after that, so you can't call in. So save your calling in for the weekend after that. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Are you about to meet the media? If you're about to be interviewed, do their homework for them. Know this about the person who will interview you. He or she is busy, so expect minimal, if any, preparation. He or she doesn't know as much about your topic as you do. He or she isn't as concerned as you are about getting your message out. So you need to take responsibility. Provide a biography and fact sheet, photographs, or other materials that tell your story. Reporters won't be put off if you supply frequently asked questions. Remember, Public Speaking 101, at the end of the speech, what's the one thing you want them to remember? You can download the document I supply to reporters who interview me and squirm through a video that demonstrates how not to conduct your media interview at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Coming up next after the news, Hour 1 of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. This comes after far-right populist Geert Wilders announced he was quitting the coalition government in a row over immigration. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration. Prime Minister Dick Schoof has resigned, but says ministers will remain in their roles on a caretaker basis until elections are held, likely in the fall.
U.S. President Trump has banned citizens from 12 countries from entering the U.S., mostly from Asia and Africa, citing security risks. 7 other countries will face restrictions. FSN's Kate Fisher has more from Washington.
There are some exceptions for green card holders, dual nationals and diplomats, but this is seen as an extension of Trump's first-term travel ban, which targeted mostly Muslim countries. The president said the countries singled out have a large-scale presence of terrorists and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays. He said countries could be added to the list as threats emerge or removed if they make material improvements to their screening procedures.
The World Bank has announced it will resume funding to Uganda after ending a self-imposed suspension of loan support. The global lender imposed a ban in 2023 after Uganda passed a harsh law against its LGBT community. FSN's Isabel Nakiria reports.
The World Bank says it's rolling out funding again after months of negotiations, with the Ugandan government welcoming the move. The bank says it's confident the measures in place will allow funds to flow smoothly without harm being caused to LGBTQ people in Uganda. The ban came into force after the East African country enacted some of the world's toughest anti-homosexual legislation. World Bank funds are one of Uganda's biggest sources of external support, funding ambitious infrastructure development.
Those were some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer reporting.
The Surgeon General warns teens the cinnamon challenge is not for pussies. Taylor Swift is now dating the Watertown boat, and a middle-aged funeral director buys a flashy red hearse. We pity your pathetic dependence on this for your weekly news, but here we go anyway. This is the Onion Week in Review. A study released this week by the National Institutes of Health confirmed that for the 25th straight year, wolf attacks remain the leading cause of death in the United States. The Human Health Agency's findings confirmed that being viciously killed by a ravenous wolf claimed the lives of over 800,000 Americans last year alone, with researchers adding that one person in the United States dies every 40 seconds from a violent wolf attack.
The mortality rate associated with wolf attacks vastly outstrips the death tolls of cancer, stroke, and chronic respiratory disease. People should know that anyone... Oh, Jesus, no.
This is the Onion News Network. Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. That is the number you want to call. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. We can talk about any topic. But we can talk about any topic as long as you keep it clean. We are on actual radio stations. It's pretty odd in this day and age that there is still terrestrial radio, and we are still regulated there. So keep your mouths clean so we don't have to wash out your mouths with soap. In studio, it's Chris,
Mr. Penguin,
and Stu.
And I think the biggest story I kept hearing about ad nauseum this week was all about the breakup. I mean, breakups are sad. I get a little verklempt when I hear about somebody breaking up, and in this case, it was Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
I didn't get choked up at all about this.
Well, I found it very revealing.
Yeah, I thought you were going to start talking about you and Colleen breaking up, and I'd be like, wait, what?
No. And
yeah, Trump and Elon are mad at each other now.
They are very mad at each other. I mean, Trump is just like, it's over, it's done with. No happy ending to that bromance. No happy ending, no rom-com coming where they're going to play it all again and everybody can look back at the glory days of Trump and Elon's very tight relationship. Elon's just basically saying, you got to go. We're done with you.
Why?
Elon's saying he needs impeached right away.
Why?
Well, he's not really living up to what people.
Is it because they don't want to use the XAI for the new dossiers on all Americans that's part of this new bill?
Is that not?
And
part
they're gonna use Peter Thiel's Palantir instead.
Oh,
and
man.
I think if I had to guess, that's what I'd say Elon's mad about.
Trump said, if he thinks about giving money to Democratic candidates, then they'll be hell to pay. So he may just end up with no government contracts, which Elon has basically said, I'll compete, but I don't want handouts. I think handouts should go away. And everything.
That's funny since he was built off of handouts.
Right.
Well, before he was really a big time billionaire, he did get about $5 billion from the feds and from you taxpayers. It was pretty crazy.
Well, it from the best research I've been able to do, it looks like his grandfather was a big time technocrat in Canada and kind of got himself kicked out for having too wild of ideas about the social credit party, and ended up in South Africa, and that's how Elon is South African and also Canadian. I think his mother is American born, and looks like she made some deals in Elon's benefit. So
that's an interesting history that I had not heard before.
Yep, the guy's name is something Haldeman.
I just had assumed his ancestry
H.R. Haldeman
was.
I think that's right.
That would have been I think Nixon's chief of staff. I was kidding.
Oh, nope. Different guy then.
So the white population traveled from, I think, Europe to South Africa, hundreds and hundreds of years, like a really long time ago. And it was that history that he was from. But
from the Boers?
Is that the group that migrated back way back when?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been the Dutch Boers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. But that's not his ancestry then, huh?
Canadian. And
interesting.
And got chased out of Canada to South Africa, and that's why he's South African.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
So he's not a real South African then?
No, he's Canadian technocrat.
Interesting.
On a distantly related note, I did read a story about the one Saturday Night Live skit that is the most offensive, that most people are completely unaware of. And sadly, it's so... Some people would perceive it as so offensive that I can't even bring it up. I'm just going to say, if you Googled Harry Shearer, Saturday Night Live skit, Krugerrand. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I can possibly say. I'll tell you on break.
Okay. You have my interest.
I was like, oh, man. Well, I could see... Now I can't even talk about it. Trump says Elon will face, quote, serious consequences if he backs Democratic candidates. This comes to us from CNBC, so it's true. President Donald Trump told NBC News that he believes his relationship with Elon Musk is irreparable after their clash this week. Quote, I would assume so, unquote, Trump said when asked if the pair's relationship is over. See, that's just sad. He also said that there would be, quote, serious consequences if Elon Musk backs Democratic candidates to take on GOP lawmakers who support the spending bill.
Oh, what's he going to do? Spoil the surprise and make it pretty obvious that right and left are the same?
I don't even understand like why you would go to support the Democrats. The Democrats are not by any stretch of the imagination going to be less tax.
Both parties like war. Both parties like taxing.
Right. Like they're one and the same. Like
both parties want a surveillance
you're going to get something better by switching to the Democratic Party.
No, but it's a threat to Trump.
It's a threat to Trump, but I mean, wouldn't some supporting anybody else be a threat to Trump, even somebody in the Republican Party?
Yeah, but there's only two parties. You forget there's only two.
Yes, but you can
there's
still
only
support
two choices.
Somebody else in the Republican Party that isn't Trump,
right?
And that would still be just as much of a threat to him, I would think. As you don't think
this whole thing is just smoke and mirrors and show, and
it's very much WWE.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's professional wrestling.
I totally would agree with that assessment. I don't know.
Yeah.
To that point, I don't know if this breakup is even real.
I don't either.
Versus scripted.
Yeah,
this is very much.
I'm sorry,
plot.
It's just too crazy out there to be scripted.
And it's.
I mean, this is like what was that show in the 90s
interesting
where they threw chairs and Jerry Springer show? It's literally the Jerry Springer show, but in real life.
Yeah.
Well, they always seem to have some story of almost no consequence like this whenever they got something they don't want you to look at, which if I had to guess is the part of this big beautiful bill which says they're gonna make dossiers on all Americans.
I just love the name. I mean, it's a big beautiful bill.
Is that the official name? I tried to look it up.
They did. It's I think they've titled it the Big Beautiful Spending and Taxing. Spending and taxation.
And this is why I can't.
I can't take it seriously.
I can't watch the WWE.
Yeah, me either.
Trump and Elon have ruined professional wrestling.
Like, the matches are cool and they do cool moves, but all this bro drama,
right?
It's just it's distasteful.
It is, and Elon said, I don't know if it's in this article, but he said, come November, we've got a primary every single Republican out there. And I'm fine with that.
What is he talking about? I thought there was going to be there was going to be frog marches and all the corrupt, deep state people that were using lawfare were going to go to prison.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to clean up all the budget. There's $1 trillion sitting in HUD that they can go grab if they want, but they're not going to because they know the corruption and where it goes, and they're all in on this.
Yes, and
there's 23 trillion in Department of Defense that they could go after. They don't have receipts for.
They have no idea how much.
we spent this much, but we can't really tell you where it went.
But even though we have to budget more than we did last time, even though we can't tell you what we spent it on,
or what we're going to spend it on,
or just lost it, or just wasted it.
Yeah.
That's what I've said since the beginning of Doge was it's one thing that you have Doge, which may identify a lot of stuff, but making any cuts is going to be completely up to Congress.
Yeah, I think there's a tracker for this, Doge tracker.
I'm sure there is.
It kind of got it up to $1 billion.
Yeah,
cut from the budget, and then just stuck there.
And
wasn't there previously audits and things they just kind of fail?
Well, anytime an audit runs into something it just gets knocked down by the national security.
So I guess the question is, how is this any different?
Nothing. It is not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's always
they have
the same
been telling
stuff.
you.
So then, why are the Democrats, which have done the same thing, so upset by it?
They see it as an opportunity.
Oh, an opportunity to attack their opponent.
That's it. So they were attacking Elon, but now they're really torn because, well, does that mean we like Elon now?
Right?
Does that mean I can drive my Tesla without worrying about it getting keyed?
This is what I was asking about when people were burning down the Tesla dealerships.
Yeah.
Elon, your guy. He's like, I know he's kind of working for the other team right now, but isn't he a Democrat? And hasn't he been doing?
It's kind of funny because
I
usually see them, the left as being very, more environmentally, conscious, and it's like, okay, so isn't he the one putting out the green cars and stuff? So like, isn't he your guy, right? Like,
yeah.
Yep.
And
it's funny how much.
Do you want people to
dissonance.
be running gas cars, driving gas cars? Because that's kind of what you're doing by, scratching up all of the nice green cars.
Elon wants to go to Mars and do all these things, which, to Democrats means bigger budgets. This is some other reason we can spend more money. So they're all for it.
Yeah.
I don't really get it, but I see him as just using it as an opportunity to get a dig in at Trump, who they hate. They hate Trump more than they hate Elon. But now it's got them flummoxed. They don't know which way. Do they really like Elon? Should we sort of like Elon?
What do they dislike about Elon specifically?
Elon supported Trump.
Is that the only reason they dislike Elon?
Yeah.
Or is there something else more to it?
I think it's strictly the Trump Association.
The Trump Association and Doge. Because Doge.
Right.
The way it was promoted was, we're going to go after wasteful government spending. We're going to shine a light on all the crap that's been going on in D.C. for decades. And they did not want that, God forbid. And if he finds savings, that means they lose budgets. They didn't have to worry because, again, the Congress controls the purse strings. And before Doge is fine for identifying stuff, but you've got to get 435 corrupt members of Congress to agree that they won't take the pork for their district. And that's just not going to happen.
I kind of knew it was a farce when they made the whole Doge thing, because I could sit down and identify $1 trillion worth of waste and fraud going on
easily.
And I have no, I don't even run in those kinds of circles, and I could find it. So why do they need these guys that seem like they're probably much busier?
Do you remember a 90s movie called Dave? Kevin Kline played a guy who looked just like the president, and the president had an affair and had a stroke or something. So they brought Dave in to pretend to be the president.
I vaguely remember this one.
Yeah, it was kind of a cute movie, but at one point, the first lady, who Dave ends up having a crush on, and they end up, you have to have the rom-com angle to it. She's a budget's going through, and they had visited I think it was an orphanage or something like that, and it turned out in the budget, it was getting cut. And he's like, we just visited that. The first lady says this is like her thing. He's like, look, if you can find $30 billion, we'll save the program. And he said it kind of jokingly. Mm-hmm. And then he called a cabinet meeting, got everybody in there, and he called his old accountant from back home in Indiana or wherever. Can you come to the White House?
Yeah.
And he's like, here's all the things. And we just took one pass. Most of it wasn't actually cutting things. He was just suggesting don't pay people like defense contracts that aren't providing what they agreed to provide.
Yeah, you could stick your finger into the government budget and swirl it around and pull it out with $1 trillion stuck to it.
I agree.
There's a really simple solution to all of this, spending. Let's just cut it back to what it was in 1925. If the program didn't exist, problem solved.
Let's cut it back to what the federal spending was in 1760.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I like that.
I really like that. Definitely.
How about if you just, and the one thing that I was hoping they would seriously talk about was doing away with all the agencies. I mean, if you just do away with agencies, that's billions of dollars with every one of them. And, and then they don't exist.
Yeah. See, I figured 1925 because almost every program that we have today was created sometime after 1925.
Yeah.
The New Deal, all of these agencies, they're all the results of stuff that happened after 1925.
Well, I would go back to 1913 and
1913. What was going on back then? I didn't think anything was. Most of the spending
that's when the Federal Reserve Act was passed. That's when
there might be some other things in there that you could go back further.
IRS,
but I think most of the spending though has resulted from
probably
the big programs kind of stuff. Big spending is more later, a little bit later than that.
I don't think any of these little fixes will work.
No, and I honestly I don't think any of it will work.
It's not a little fix; it's a big fix because it's added up over the last 100+ years.
Anything internal to me is little, and it's not going to work. You'd have to have a major overhaul. The least drastic type of measure that I think would actually work is you ban everybody who currently works for government from ever working for government again. And then you run a random selection to fill necessary government offices only.
Well, I've been saying that I think we need to change. I think democracy hasn't worked for us, and it's not that I don't think it's. I think it has been the best form of or the best solution to governance, but I don't think it's worked well. And I think if we were to literally do a random sampling of the population to fill positions, I think we'd probably have a better government than what we have now. I mean, it's really crazy, but
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, I think the average person is probably not, anything special, or I think they're far more honest than the type of person who makes themselves a career politician.
Right. And I think that's the problem that would solve is just the random selection, rather than have it being, based on votes and things. I mean, people are they're basically brainwashed. They have no idea who they're voting for anyway. And we already in some respect are somewhat getting a random. I think it could be better in that you're still getting people who have volunteered themselves, which is part of the problem. But if people aren't volunteering themselves and they're just being said, oh, you're going to be a president for a day or something like that, I think we'd end up having a better.
Do you think term
outcome.
Limits would help?
Random. Just let's randomize it.
I understand
I don't think we need to worry about term limits. Just randomize it completely.
But realizing that would take many amendments being stricken in the Constitution or rewritten. How about term limits where you can come to Washington, you have 2 years, of your Congress?
In a lot of cases, that just makes things worse. Because
does it?
Because how does it make it worse?
Well,
I've heard this argument.
It's the monarchy versus democracy argument, right? The monarch has a vested interest in keeping the empire together, so he has something to hand to the prince.
Yep.
Whereas the president in democracy, he's only there for 4 years, and he doesn't care if it burns down afterward.
Right.
So if you shorten that term, people are going to be even more aggressive to get their agendas through in the short amount of time that they have there.
What about having people institute through random number generation, right? And then we vote them out as opposed to voting people in from the beginning, because then people don't get to pick who's going to be in. But if anybody's really bad, you could just get rid of them easily.
I like Robert Heinlein's solution. You have an election. Whoever gets the least amount of votes, they win.
That probably would be a better outcome.
Exactly. Just across the board. Whoever gets the least amount of votes, that's who you pick.
Is that from the moon is a harsh mistress? I must not have gotten to that point yet. I did start reading that, though.
I'm glad.
About 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, you'll get there. It's towards the end. But yeah, that idea, the thing is that what we're talking about is Chris is tossing out great ideas that would undoubtedly work in practice that are impossible to do in a constitutional republic. You'll never get anyone to modify the Constitution.
Yeah,
the last one that was
I think the whole thing is much like a dilapidated New England house that somebody really wants to save, but they ought to just push it over, get rid of it, and pour a new foundation.
Something we know about.
And so I think if people want, lasting peace, they gotta come up with a new form, something far more decentralized than these massive.
We need radical changes, but we need a lot of little radical changes spread out so we can figure out what actually works.
Right, decentralized change.
Yeah. Not these. I mean, this is the whole democracy, I think, in just a general, was kind of like a revolutionary concept, but it shouldn't have stopped there, right? Like, we shouldn't have been like, oh, well, this is now good enough, right? It's like, it shouldn't take thousands of years to get to another form of government that works better.
Yeah, definitely not a perfected form of governance.
Let's start swapping things up. Mandatory change of government every so many years.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, like, I don't know how we actually come up with new ideas, but let's just throw out the old government, throw in a new government.
Yeah, I think
no government.
I think it's also a question of size. I mean, the United States and all the superpowers certainly are too big to succeed. There's
for sure.
No way that you can possibly govern 330 million people under a constitution
I think if you start looking at smaller governments, like, spread out, we have some really good smaller government. It's hard to kind of evaluate different governments just because there are, like, different sizes, and there's also different resources that each government might have. Like, for example, certain governments are they govern over lands that have oil, and so it's like, okay, well, how can you compare that against some place in Africa that has absolutely nothing, right?
I would start my program with Massa.
Massa?
Make America states again.
Yeah.
For
sure,
at
definitely.
least, like, break it down to that and go from there. I mean, the problem is this idea that this is one nation indivisible and everything must move just in lockstep across 50 frickin' states.
I agree to the extent that that's going the right direction, but I think
the end all.
I think even in a world where you had a dissolution of the federal government and you were left with 50 state governments right next to each other, you'd end up with border crossing problems, and it would be kind of a mess.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. We have places in Europe that aren't like that at all, and
they have the EU. That's also the plan for what's coming here. We could talk about that later.
Right. 603-283-6160 is the number to call. Get on the air. What do you think? Should we become states again? This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Yeah, then what are you going to do about it? Instead of sitting on a microphone, what are you going to do about it?
I've stopped paying income tax. My partner spent 60 days in jail for standing in the way of a police car that was taking somebody to jail that he didn't believe should be taken to jail.
So I've done cop blocking, I've done outreach, I've done all kinds of stuff. Do you need more? I've run for political office, I've gone to the State House and testified many times, and I also do civil disobedience. What else can I do?
It's like it's pathetic, really. I mean, it's
What's
bad.
pathetic, sir? What's pathetic?
The two of you are.
How's that exactly?
The two of you are, because you're pathetic. You just sit there and rail about stuff that you don't do a thing about.
What are you doing, Danny? Tell me something I could do that's not pathetic.
I'm not hosting a show. I'm not hosting a show. I'm not the one that.
So you have no ideas. You have nothing original.
He's got microphone
and now you're going bye-bye.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has no plans to hold a make-up phone call with Elon Musk after their very public social media breakup. Sources at the White House also suggest the president is planning to sell his Tesla after the tech billionaire heavily criticized Trump's spending bill. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The theatrics, the social media explosions, the hour-by-hour updates, all of them hiding potentially seismic consequences for both men, much of it revolving around money. Donald Trump could see support for his spending bill fall away. Elon Musk is trying to kill it, urging senators to vote it down. But Elon Musk could also hold back political donations in the future for Republican candidates, making it harder for the Republicans to hang on to the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And Elon Musk faces consequences of his own, with Trump threatening to cut government contracts for Musk companies worth $38 billion, and all of this creating volatility for share prices. On Thursday, Tesla lost $152 billion. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday agreed to further trade talks aimed at resolving disputes over tariffs and supplies of rare earth minerals. The promise of fresh discussions followed a phone conversation between the leaders of the two superpowers that President Trump described as very positive. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
It was the first time the two leaders are known to have spoken since the trade war soured relations. According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping said that cooperation and dialogue are the only correct choice for China and the United States. It added that Xi had invited Donald Trump to visit China and said the United States should withdraw negative measures against his country. Last month, the world's two biggest economies agreed to a temporary truce to roll back tariffs in a meeting in Geneva. But in recent weeks, both countries have accused the other of violating that agreement.
The Dutch government has collapsed just weeks before NATO leaders gather for a high-level summit in The Hague. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
At a press conference Wednesday, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte laughed off questions over whether he'd seek a return to Dutch politics. The former Dutch Prime Minister also downplayed concerns that political volatility in the country will hamper the NATO military alliance's goals to boost defence spending and sign off on new capability targets. The government collapse in the Netherlands comes after Geert Wilders issued an ultimatum, calling for stricter measures on irregular migration.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. That's our number. That's the one you want to call. Get in queue to get on the air and let's have a conversation. We have been talking about the sad breakup of Trump and Elon. I wanted to give a moment of silence for the breaking up of America's greatest bromance ever. And we have been talking about what a blank show this current system is, and speculating what might make it better. The problem, as I see it, is that we've got a constitution, and my Americans love to talk about their constitution, but that makes any change extremely difficult. The last constitutional amendment that actually got ratified, it was not talking about ERA because that's questionable about whether it actually got ratified, but the one before that was having to do with congressional pay, I believe, and that was started, I think, during John Adams' administration. So this took hundreds of years before it was actually ratified and actually became part of the Constitution. Hundreds of years. So, we can't change anything easily.
I don't know if it's just because I'm an eighth of that age almost already, but 200 years actually seems like a pretty short amount of time historically speaking.
It does, unless you're in an oppressive regime.
The Mormon
Right.
church, the Mormon church is
Then
less old than that, but and it feels pretty old to a lot of people who study the history and stuff.
I believe
Mormon
that.
Church?
Yeah, the Mormon church
isn't that
was
only from like the 1900s or something like
uh,
that?
1830.
Yeah,
I would think 18, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just remember it being one of the youngest religions in history.
Yeah, it came out of the the burnt over district time and shortly after Napoleon, so that kind of also puts things into context. That wasn't that Napoleon was only 230 or 40 years ago.
That's crazy. Yeah, between you and Riley, I've learned more about the machinations of the Mormon religion than I ever would have known.
Yeah,
just little bits.
Oh, yep, plenty of fun there. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I don't want to learn too much about it. In some respects, the ideas of the Free State Project are based on it.
Interesting. I'd like to learn more about the connections there.
Well, just the general idea of migrating people, for
kind of
for a purpose.
That's
a good point.
I guess it is kind of a Zionist project in that aspect.
Yeah.
So the Mormons are very much a Zionist culture. They talk about the Promised Land a lot and stuff like that. So I've never heard a Free Stater call this in New Hampshire the Promised Land, but maybe I don't think start calling it that.
I think we should go down that road. I think we should take the good ideas of what the Mormons had and throw away the rest, just as we take the good ideas from other, areas as well. Throw out the rest.
Probably.
It's a political migration.
They were rewarded with a very hard time from the locals for all of their Zionism.
Mm.
But when we talk about the Free State Project here in New Hampshire, I look always at Vermont because that, I believe, even to this day, was the most successful political migration in history. And I've talked about this before.
Let's talk about this again, because I'm not entirely sure what you're referencing, even though I am aware that the left has taken over Vermont over since I guess the 70s or something like that.
Yeah. So, after the 60s and as Nixon became president, a lot of hippies. Literally the hippies.
The hardest core of the hardest core?
The hardest core are like, wow, man, we got to get out of here. Let's just all move to Vermont, man, and just do what we want, man.
Well, they certainly picked a beautiful state.
They did.
The geography is lovely there.
It is gorgeous. And that was the initial start of this migration that ended up, they literally picked a state, in a decentralized way. They came there in great numbers and began influencing local politics. And next thing you know, you get Bernie Sanders. This is exactly what they set out to do.
I'm gonna have to tell my lefty friends, that we're just doing what you guys did with the Vermont.
I believe that, and I think, and look at how successful. They didn't just come over here and they ran for local office and stuff like that, but then they got elected to state government, and then they got elected to national positions, and it was their very leftist candidates running for Senate and House.
I guess this is illustrative of why I'm hesitant about the whole states' rights thing. If let's say all the people that are kind of left-wing politically minded went to Vermont, and everybody who was libertarian minded moved to New Hampshire, and let's just say hypothetically everybody Republican minded moved to Maine, and then the three of these states are right next to each other, and they don't like the neighborly activities of the states next door. This quickly shapes into a war. And,
would it?
I don't know.
And I think it would. It's not hard to whip up a mob.
It isn't. And I think libertarians are some of the hardest people to whip up to do anything, even go to lunch together.
And that's why I think it needs to be far more decentralized. Because if government were limited to, say, 8 people,
right?
Then go ahead and go to war with your 8 people.
Yeah.
I think that'll be shut down pretty quickly if it's not justified.
Right.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know that's the case. It just seems like there's definitely lots of countries that have different politics, and they're not just constantly at war with each other. Certainly if we go back in time, there was more of that, but I don't think we'd have that today.
Well, I do, and that's because I've studied the way that bankers like to foment war and fund both sides, and they'll find the little wound that the little annoyance, and they'll sit there and pester at it, and they'll make it a way bigger deal than it needs to be.
Oh yeah,
until
definitely know what you mean by that, but
and it becomes a back and forth thing until it really becomes something major, and and then there's some incident where some kid dies, or right, sure, and that gets highly publicized, and then you're looking at a war.
Yeah, I don't think any of these New England states, just using your example, have enough people to really create armies. I mean, you're looking at 3 of the lowest population states in the United States.
I don't know. 1,000 people can do a lot of destruction.
I know, but
I just don't see it. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm not sure I'm with you on that one, but I understand your sentiment.
Yeah.
And you always will have outside influencers who try to foment distrust and bankers who will always
dissent.
come up with a way to profit off of other people, the hardness of hardships of other people, and I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
And see, I also lack the how do I say this? I mean, there's, don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of wars since I've been born and whatnot, but like we haven't had any major wars, right? Like that I can think of, right? Like, I mean, how many wars?
What do you mean, on American soil, or like,
especially on American or Western?
Because
Western.
All of the Iraq wars,
soils.
All of the Iraq wars were pretty major. Vietnam was major. Korea was major.
I mean, I don't know if I would call those
a lot of people
major,
died.
I mean,
they
so maybe the Korean
They carpet bombed Laos. They poisoned children. They're still feeling the effects of Agent Orange. This is major.
These aren't major
These are atrocities that should never
powers that are going to war with each other. These are Western powers sponsoring minor, insignificant powers going to war with each other.
See, we haven't had world wars. We've had proxy wars.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to phrase it. Proxy war.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's bankers funding things to get their 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 secret agendas through, which is usually drug trades and things like that.
And there's plenty of evidence to look at with Vietnam. I mean, that thing was a complete setup.
Yeah, and had everything to do with international drug trade. And
I feel like what we have are more like scrimmages on the world stage as far as wars, in terms of wars over the course of, like, I don't know, a couple hundred years. I mean, we had some more substantial wars in the past, but since World War II, there really hasn't been anything.
Well, I mean, and we had almost 50 years of a Cold War after World War II.
Sure, but it's also the key word there is cold, right?
Meaning people, not large numbers of people died, but the damage caused by the spending on the Cold War and by Vietnam and
to me, it seems like there's never not been war going on.
There has not been.
There's just always been war.
Sure.
Yeah, somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere
so maybe we're a little numb to it, and it doesn't seem like these are major wars. But I'm
not
telling
saying
you,
to
me, it's major when innocent children die.
I think
because bombs were dropped on their heads.
I certainly don't think that necessarily, but I do think that just women, children, period, right? Innocent people having bombs dropped on their head is significant and worth talking about. I just don't think we've had major Western powers going to war with other significant powers.
Yeah, we've learned how to stay out of those. We keep everybody happy. I mean, we were in.
Yeah, it's done mostly on a proxy level, like Chris was saying.
But you look at the Middle East after 2001. How long were we over there?
20 years.
20 years.
I was never over there.
Well, I say we.
Yeah, fair enough.
This country collectively.
It's a good point. Well, I definitely wasn't over there either.
Yeah, but 20-year war.
Yeah.
For what?
And you can mark out like 3.5 maybe Iraq wars, separate distinctive wars.
Probably, yeah. And you had
3?
You had a distinct war in Syria, and
for sure.
The history on that stuff is recent, but also harder to get my mind around than a lot of other histories. Scott Horton is really good on that stuff.
Yeah, he is.
And he cites, I'm pretty sure, at least 3.5.
3.5. Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I know the major or the U.S. involved ones in 1990 was it 91 something like that.
Yeah, 90 or 91. Desert Storm.
And obviously like 2002. What? No, it wasn't. It was later, right? It was
2001. It wasn't long after.
It was sometime after 2001, but I don't remember what year it was.
They started in 2001.
Was it 2001?
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was Afghanistan.
We started to go into Afghanistan, and that whole time he's going, and we've got to take out Saddam because he said bad things about my daddy. And
well, it came out later that they already had the document drawn up that they wanted to go over there and take down 7 different countries in the Middle East.
Well, and they
starting with Iraq.
They had a lot to gain by that entire war. Like, do you think they came up with the Patriot Act in a week?
No, that was
started from
pre-written.
scratch. That was already pre-written.
Yeah,
and I mean, we're still.
That was a wish list of everything.
Yeah, because now they had an excuse,
Yep.
and we have never recovered from the passage of the Patriot
Oh,
Act,
no,
and
definitely
we
not.
never will. And that's the one thing I like to stress is that where we are now, we will never come back from. If it was ever better in the United States prior to, say, 2000, we'll never get back there. None of this will ever be rolled back. None of it. And none of the things that Edward Snowden talked about and made public, none of that stuff is ever rolled back. Everybody's like, well, Snowden came out and, we fixed all that. It's like, no, you didn't.
What are you talking
You
about?
didn't fix any of it.
I mean, the only thing that was fixed was that people have more knowledge about some of the things that were going on.
Right.
Nothing ever got fixed.
The fixed about it was that government now knows you don't care if you're being spied on.
Right, that's it. Yeah.
That was the conclusion.
So we can just go ahead and do whatever we want, and eventually they're going to hear about it, but they don't care. So
Because
what's
it's
the big
not
deal?
because it's not illegal today.
And it's interesting that Washington plays up all this stuff about, how concerned people are about their privacy in giving their personal information to Apple and Google and Microsoft. And I'm listening to this stuff going, yeah, I get that, but you do know that Edward Snowden showed us all that everything that goes to Apple and Google and Microsoft goes directly to the government.
Yeah,
you are remembering that part of this too.
Was that Snowden? I don't even think that was Snowden.
No, Snowden brought it out into the open.
Yeah, he showed people that they could spy on people to the level that if you left your laptop, lid open,
I thought that was a
but
different.
your computer
a
was
different
off. They
reveal,
could go
not
in there
Snowden.
and covertly turn the camera on and just watch you. Like
Yeah,
they could.
I mean,
they could do all manner of spying.
I'm not debating whether or not that is true and that happened in Microsoft and Skype and all that, right? But I thought that was a different revelation that came out.
So the first program that I remember hearing about is Snowden started to release stuff.
And there was the AT&T guy too that also revealed stuff prior to
and
Snowden.
the AT&T place in San Francisco had happened a couple of years prior to that, and the AT&T and the government said, nothing to see here, don't worry about it, we don't do any of that stuff. And
was that the thing about the fusion rooms?
This was, I don't know what they called it.
It was a secret. It was a secret, like
it was a switch
space or something. Yeah, a
that
secret
basically
room
sucked in all
AT&T.
internet traffic on the
Yeah.
planet.
It sliced the fiber line and basically duplicated that.
Yeah, and the NSA testified before Congress that no, we absolutely don't do that. We're not doing any of this. Snowden's release of his document showed that, yes, we do, and while we're doing it, we have time to put together these great PowerPoints filled with corporate logos and all these beautiful documents and diagrams showing exactly how we read every text, every phone call, every email that passes through every system.
Mm-hmm.
And that did not stop. It's never going to stop. And it disgusts me with most Americans that you're okay with this. I know you guys aren't, and I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that.
Not at all.
I'm sadly resigned to the fact that I have to communicate with the knowledge that this goes on. So I just choose more secure ways to communicate things that are important to me. And I get that. Chris, you're probably better at it than anybody I know. You absolutely refuse to communicate in any way that is simple for them to snoop on you. You seem to make it a point.
I wouldn't say that it's hard to snoop on me. I think the way to phrase it is that my communications probably aren't getting as entangled in the mass surveillance state that we've got.
Right.
And that's because like I don't even have a SIM card in my phone, right? Like I don't have the, Wi-Fi on when I'm not using it,
These are not normal behaviors for the average American at all.
Yes,
remotely.
I 100% agree with you. Right?
And I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there are some simple things you can do to. It's not that they're not able to track you just because you do some of these little things. It's more like the resolution of how much detail they have on you,
right?
Or how how much they've got. And what they can see is diminished. So, and I think the best way of sort of looking at it is more kind of like this. So they may know that I'm doing Free Talk Live, but they don't necessarily know what time I left my house. Did I stop at, Dunkin' Donuts to pick up a coffee on my way?
Right.
That kind of thing. And that's because I don't have a SIM card in my phone. I don't have the Wi-Fi on. But at the same time, if I leave town, they probably have, what is it? ASLR, automatic license plate recognition. It goes by different names, but
States
systems
around us do.
Yeah, but they're recording the license
readers.
plates,
Yeah.
right? So, certainly they have some amount of information on me, even though I've taken, a bunch of steps to sort of reduce the resolution.
I just admire people that do that. And I say that knowing that I used to be that guy and it just became too difficult. It's not, I'm just making cop-out complaints about, it's very difficult. It takes a lot of time and effort if you want to. And or more to the point, to change, to begin adopting that.
But you don't have to do everything, right? Like just doing a few little things, I mean, to do what you can and don't overdo it, because if you overdo it, you'll never go back to doing at least something to mitigate the problem, right?
Yeah, I think you should do as much as is feasible
I think
for
so
your
too.
lifestyle.
Yep.
And I do things like, I prefer pretty much any browser I can get over Google.
Little things, yeah.
And I won't maybe I'll read the AI overview for giggles, but I never give it any credibility.
Right.
I never use it for research. I never ask it things.
Right.
And so, yeah, a lot of times it's just dead wrong or totally stupid. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't think AI is yet at the point where anybody should put a lot of faith into it. And I love that every week a story comes out about some lawyer who wrote a court brief or did his research using AI, and like 90% of it is just completely fabricated AI hallucinations. And, it is what it is. But yeah, those little things you can do, if they do want to know what you're doing and you're using Signal, then they're going to have to expend a lot of effort to hack your Signal or to get a court to allow you to get what information they would get, which is what, phone number?
Yeah, I mean, so with Signal and Telegram, they're going to have data like your phone number. That's actually the most disturbing thing. So we talk about like metadata, and things like Matrix aren't perfect with metadata, but I'm not forced to present, basically an ID in order to use it. Whereas with Signal or Telegram, you're forced to present an ID. And that to me is like the most disturbing thing, right? Even more so than
have to give me your phone number.
Right. Like, so I wouldn't personally use Signal and I'd suggest avoiding Telegram, particularly now as Telegram over the last couple of years now has become more and more entrenched with governments and handing over people's data. But
that happens when they come after you and threaten to put you into a cage for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's actually exactly what happened. The co-founder, or one of the co-founders of Telegram, traveled to France, and he was arrested because they basically said he wasn't doing enough to help the government to hand over enough data.
They said
to
you're
the
under
government.
arrest for not letting us, for not helping us spy on people.
The disturbing thing about it is Telegram was already